Chapter 1019 Dragon Trapping Array. Chapter 1019 Dragon Trapping Array. Well, let's set off now, Dian suggested. Sure. Dao Master Dreamless nodded. But I must clarify this. I will only deal with Jian Wushuang. I won't intervene in the war between Black Python Clan and Rock Demon Clan. Of course. Both Dian and Emo Lin gave an easy smile. Jian Wushuang was the reason why Black Python Clan could not defeat Rock Demon Clan. If Dao Master Dreamless managed to get rid of Jian Wushuang, whom Rock Demon Clan had been dependent on, Rock Demon Clan will inherently be at Black Python Clan's mercy. Moments later, Dao Master Dreamless appeared from a void before Rock Demon Clan's residences. Dian, Emo Lin, and other experts followed behind the master. Jian Wushuang. Dao Master Dreamless' powerful voice could be heard by the entire Rock Demon Clan. The intensity of the voice shocked even Rock Demon Clan. In the valley, Jian Wushuang was practicing his swordsmanship in solitary. I'm almost there. What's the last component? Brows knitted, he racked his brains for an answer. He had assimilated the coalescent sword principle and the aurora sword formation. The third sword principle was nearly integrated as well. But Jian Wushuang could not overcome the final step to achieve full assimilation. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang, the powerful voice which had rang throughout the entire Rock Demon Clan, reached the little valley where Jian Wushuang was. Jian Wushuang looked up in the direction of the sound. Brother Wushuang, along with Rock Demon Clan's experts, God Hong hurried into the valley. Brother Hong, what's the matter? Jian Wushuang asked. It's the Black Python Clan, they're here again. They brought someone to help them this time. God Hong looked worried. Oh, Jian Wushuang nodded. He wasn't surprised. He had fully expected that Black Python Clan would not let the matter rest. Who did they bring along? Jian Wushuang asked. I don't know. God Hong shook his head. All I know is that he is good at spears and has a strong aura that is stronger than most experts at the peak of rank 3. But he is not a celestial master. Not a celestial master? Jian Wushuang smirked. Jian Wushuang is well aware of his defense skills. To pose as a threat to him, one must be a celestial master. Since the person who Black Python Clan had brought along was not a celestial master, he had nothing to worry about. Gu King, is there anything that can hinder one's movement among the treasures that Dao Yuanzi had left behind? Jian Wushuang doubted. There is. What are you going to do with it? Asked Gu King. The 9 sword scars are losing their power, and I don't intend to stay here anymore. If I can, I'd like to get rid of the Black Python Clan once and for all. Jian Wushuang replied. Dao Yuanzi left a large collection of treasures. There are ones which prevents one from running away. Though the only one you'll find helpful will be the Dragon Trapping Array. Gu King added. Dragon Trapping Array? Jian Wushuang asked. The Dragon Trapping Array is an ordinary spell formation in Eternal Chaotic World, but it's an impressive one in Green Fire World. The spell formation will cast a temporary defensive cover once it's set up. Save for the spellcaster, anyone trapped within the defensive cover will have their speed of movement reduced. The enemies can't escape within a short period of time. With their speed of movement significantly reduced, you are presented with the opportunity to kill them, Gu King continued. Dao Yuanzi left behind a complete set of Dragon Trapping Array, which you may set up secretly. But some Chaos Gems will be required to cast the spell formation. How many Chao Gems are needed? Jian Wushuang asked. It depends on how long you need the formation to last for. On average, to maintain the formation for 15 minutes, you would need 10 Chaos Gems. Gu King answered. 10 Chaos Gems for 15 minutes. Jian Wushuang repeated, eyes glowing. For an expert like Jian Wushuang, 15 minutes was sufficient to engage in several rounds of battle. With some extra effort, he will be able to destroy the entire Black Python Clan in less than 15 minutes. I'll take the Dragon Trapping Array. Jian Wushuang made the decision and summoned his slaughter body. Take care of them for me. Jian Wushuang ordered, passing an interspatial ring to his slaughter body. Okay. The slaughter body nodded slightly and left with the lightness and fluidity of a ghost. Jian Wushuang, what are you? God Hong, and the others couldn't understand what was happening with the appearance of Slaughter Body. Brother Hong, let's go and meet Black Python Clan. Jian Wushuang merely smiled and headed towards the void. In the void before the residences of Rock Demon Clan, Dao Master Dreamless headed a group of soldiers while holding long golden spears. The master emitted a strong aura. Swish, 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 swish. In a flash, numerous figures flew before Dao Master Dreamless, floating in the air. Is that the person who Black Python Clan is engaging help from? Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes at Dao Master Dreamless. He could feel the pressure that Dao Master Dreamless is giving him. He experienced similar level of pressure when facing Emperor Shao or Emperor Yin. He is likely to be a match for Uncle Shao. Jian Wushuang thought. So, you are Jian Wushuang? Dao Master Dreamless returned the stare. I am. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. I'm Dao Master Dreamless, Heaven-level law executor of Samsara Temple. Not long ago, you killed our gold-clothed deacon Jinyu. Today, I'm here to take your life. The Dao Master declared in a deep tone. The Master's words were a shock to Rock Demon Clan's experts. He's from Samsara Temple. Did Master Wushuang kill a gold-clothed deacon of Samsara Temple? Damn, a law executor from Samsara Temple, this means trouble. The faces of God Hong and others turned white in distress. Jian Wushuang simply wore a faint smile and asked the Master, Dao Master Dreamless, may I know how are you going to take my life? I'll kill you right here. The Dao Master retorted coldly and darted towards Jian Wushuang. Shoo! A terrifying noise resonated throughout the void. Dao Master Dreamless shifted from his original position to where Jian Wushuang was in an instant. His long golden spears were aggressively directed at Jian Wushuang. Chapter 1020, Dao Master Dreamless. Chapter 1020, Dao Master Dreamless. Those spears. Jian Wushuang regarded the intimidating gold spears that pierced through the void and left a damaged portal. Though shocked, Jian Wushuang managed to draw his Blood Mountain sword, which was quaking with power. Ruthlessness. With a shout he struck. A stifling power blanketed the area. The strike was ruthless and direct. Clang! The edge of the sword and the tip of the long gold spear clashed, shattering the void nearby. Jian Wushuang's arms trembled at the force of the blows, and he could not help but stagger back. His power is astounding, Jian Wushuang exclaimed to himself. In terms of strength, the Dao Master was far superior to him. Go! With another shout, Dao Master Dreamless lunged out with his gold spear again. Chew! 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 He struck 3 more times, every blow fast and terrifying as a venomous snake. With cold resolve in his eyes, Jian Wushuang brandished his Blood Mountain sword. Since Jian Wushuang had devised the Aurora Sword principle, he was able to keep up with the Dao Master's speed. Clang! 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 Jian Wushuang's arms shivered at the force of each blow. Humph! Jian Wushuang lashed out at the Dao Master's neck with all of his strength. Death Shadow! Clang! Light flashed off his sword as Jian Wushuang launched an immaterial consciousness attack. Dao Master Dreamless went still at the attack, but recovered quickly and struck again. He easily warded off the Death Shadow and forced Jian Wushuang to retreat, once again. Suddenly, the Dao Master's fighting seemed to improve. He struck continuously, sometimes stabbing, sometimes slashing, and sometimes even throwing out the length of his spear. Every blow the Dao Master launched was formidable. He was far more capable than an ordinary Dao Master at the peak of rank 3. He's too powerful. Though Jian Wushuang could keep up with his opponent's speed, the latter was much stronger. Every time he blocked a blow, Jian Wushuang's remaining strength dwindled. All the consecutive strikes were beginning to test his endurance. Damn it, I can't do it anymore. Jian Wushuang was pale-faced and trembling, and he could no longer ignore the sharp pain in his arms. All of his strength left him suddenly. Dao Master Dreamless lashed out with his spear. The force of the blow dented the Blood Mountain sword. Vehemence gleamed in the Dao Master's eyes. Ultimate dragon killing. Chew! A blinding golden light emerged. The light shone like a golden sun before it barreled toward Jian Wushuang. Everywhere the light touched, the void shattered. The single strike of the spear seemed to destroy everything. Jian Wushuang squinted at the strike and attempted to block it. His blood mountain sword fell to the side and failed to ward off the impact, which hit him square in the chest. Clang! A clash resounded. What? The Dao Master looked up in surprise. A crimson mist from his robe covered Jian Wushuang's entire body. The tip of the spear wounded Jian Wushuang, but failed to fatally pierce him. Shoo! The force of the blow threw Jian Wushuang back. He grunted from the impact and coughed up blood. Jian Wushuang was wounded. Even with the blood-killing plate armory, Jian Wushuang was wounded by the spear. It was the first time that he had been hurt after he became a 3-star ancient god and acquired the blood-killing plate armor. Under normal circumstances, even with a direct hit, Jian Wushuang would remain unscathed. When Di Yan had landed a blow on Jian Wushuang, he was not only unharmed, but had somehow caused Di Yan to break a tooth. The fact that the Dao Master was able to wound Jian Wushuang was a testament to his abilities. The observers, however, were amazed that Jian Wushuang was not more seriously injured. He's only slightly injured after taking a hit like that in the chest. My God, how strong is his defensive power? It is really insurmountable. The crowd roared and bellowed. God Hong widened his eyes. I've awakened my rock demon giant bloodline, and I'm a master in defense. But even if I became 10 times stronger, I still couldn't ward off that blow. How is he only slightly injured? The crowd was astounded. Even Dao Master Dreamless himself was surprised. You're not badly injured. Dao Master Dreamless. Di Yan continued with a serious voice. Even though you can't kill him with one strike, he's injured now, and all you have to do is continue to attack. Soon, he'll be defeated. I have to keep attacking. The Dao Master considered the action, but his expression suddenly changed. He noticed Jian Wushuang's expression. During the previous round of battle, Jian Wushuang must have known the outcome. Jian Wushuang was supposed to look shocked or terrified, or at least disheartened at being injured in such a fashion. Instead, Jian Wushuang seemed pleasantly surprised. Yes, he was surprised, perhaps even elated. That blow! Jian Wushuang yelled in his heart as his eyes flashed with excitement. Dao Master Dreamless' strike was powerful and overwhelming. Almost no one could have blocked it. Jian Wushuang was inspired by it. Such power! So violent and overpowering. Isn't this just what I need to devise the third sword principle? Chapter 1021. The Scarlet Yang Sword Principle. Chapter 1021. The Scarlet Yang Sword Principle. Jian Wushuang was indeed astonished. He had studied the powerful Yang Sword Principle he acquired from Dao Yuanxi extensively. From Dao Yuanxi's instruction, he had developed the better part of the sword principle, and had almost succeeded in completing it. He had been stumped by the last step, however. Dao Master's powerful strike just gave him inspiration. I must provoke him to draw out his attacks. The more techniques I see, the more I'll be able to understand. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists and called out, Gu King! Leave it to me. His ability is unfounded, but it will take but a second for me to heal you. Gu King said seriously. As a pleniline centipede, Gu King had mastered the skill of healing. It was because of both his own great defensive power and Gu King's healing skills that Jian Wushuang believed that he was invincible. Fight! Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with renewed spirit, and with a roar, he lunged toward the Dao Master. Humph! The Dao Master resolutely stared down his attacker. The second round of the battle was even more ferocious. Dao Master Dreamless was faster and more vicious, and Jian Wushuang strained to parry the brutal blows over and over again. Ultimate Dragon Killing. The Dao Master struck Jian Wushuang once again, and the latter was thrown back. Within moments, however, Jian Wushuang came at him again. Again! Jian Wushuang was provoking the Dao Master, regardless of his own injuries. Die! Ultimate Dragon Killing. Dao Master Dreamless put his full might behind his more powerful maneuver. He hit Jian Wushuang again and again. If his opponent had been anyone else, they would have died on the spot. However, after being injured numerous times, Jian Wushuang continued to spring back, as determined as ever. This might have been reasonable if the Tao Master had only struck once or twice, but his opponent had been hit at least 10 times, and was still full of energy. How is this possible? How is he unharmed? Tao Master Dreamless was in shock. The crowd was also dumbfounded. They had all failed to sense Gu King inside Jian Wushuang, healing him immediately each time a blow landed, and sustaining his strength and stamina. There's no other way. I have to use my secret weapon. Tao Master Dreamless' eyes were purposeful. He drew out a jade bottle and swallowed a drop of essence blood. Immediately, his aura flared up, and his pupils burned a fiery red. With his eyes fixated on Jian Wushuang, he lifted his spear to attack. Golden Dragon Drill. With a loud shout, Tao Master Dreamless twisted his wrist and threw out his spear in a strange maneuver. The nearby void was shattered immediately. Out of nothing emerged a giant black hole, and at its center was a golden vortex. From deep within the vortex, the long spear launched out at Wushuang in the form of a dragon. The earth shook. The crowd stared at the golden dragon in unprecedented astonishment. So this. Dian was also amazed. The great power of a celestial master. With just one drop of essence blood, Tao Master Dreamless was able to perform his move at the level of a celestial master. The blow sent tremors into the earth. The strike rattled the crowd. Jian Wushuang froze at the sight of the dragon. This maneuver. The attack filled Jian Wushuang's vision. It was a paralyzing and dominating blow. As the spear sped toward him, the secret of the third sword principle dawned on Jian Wushuang. Could this be the answer? He finally deciphered his dilemma. Jian Wushuang was ecstatic. Right as the spear reached his chest, he returned the blow. Jian Wushuang's strike was just as aggressive, and perhaps even more vicious. All of his strength poured into the blow. Bam! The ground quaked at the ear-piercing sound. Shoo! Jian Wushuang was forced backward like a flowing light. When he finally found his footing, Jian Wushuang felt a sweet taste climbed into his mouth and spat out blood. Drained of color, his face still reflected a curious expression. On the other side, standing in the void, Tao Master Dreamless was also pale. It was not easy for him to release his strongest attack. With astonishment in his eyes, he looked to Jian Wushuang. You've broken through? He spoke slowly. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang smirked and wiped the blood from his mouth, saying, I couldn't have devised my third sword principle so fast if it wasn't for you. Thank you. Indeed, without the inspiration of Tao Master Dreamless' fierce attack and excellent spear skills, Jian Wushuang would not have succeeded in inventing his own third sword principle so soon. During the fierce battle he had been enlightened. The secret of the last step dawned on him, and the third sword principle finally revealed itself. Staring at the Blood Mountain sword in his hand, Jian Wushuang murmured, My third one is Dao Yuanzi's legacy. It's yang fierce and overwhelming. It's replete with power. It will be the Scarlet Yang sword principle. After the Coalescence sword principle and the Aurora sword principle, Jian Wushuang finally devised his third one, the Scarlet Yang sword principle. Being the strongest sword principle, it achieved the universe level at its creation. Chapter 1022. There is no escape. Chapter 1022. There is no escape. I've used my best hit, but still haven't defeated you. Instead, you had a breakthrough. Now that you are even stronger, I do not have the ability to kill you, said Tao Master Dreamless as he drew back his long spear, resigned. Jian Wushuang gave a wry smile. In creating the third sword principle, which was at the universe level, he had greatly strengthened himself in offensive power. He would be almost unparalleled in skill. Now, Tao Master Dreamless wouldn't even be able to hold him off, let alone kill him. Jian Wushuang. Tao Master Dreamless tossed a token in his direction. Though hesitant, he reached out to catch the token in his hands. The moment it touched his hand, a voice echoed through his mind. Jian Wushuang, we the Samsara Temple know that 20 years ago, Jin Yu attacked you first, and you only killed him in defense. You didn't mean to provoke us. Dao Master Dreamless' mouth did not move as his message was sent through the token. He clearly wanted a private conversation with Jian Wushuang. To be completely transparent, I did not come with the intention of killing you. We only wanted to teach you a lesson, since you killed a gold-clothed deacon. We couldn't just let you get away with it. We didn't want to kill you, because you have great potential. Perhaps you can join the Green Fire Palace and serve as our soldier. We won't kill a prodigy like you unless absolutely necessary. When I said I wanted to kill you on the spot, I was merely attempting to provoke you into using your full strength. Please forgive me if I've been rude. Dao Master Dreamless sounded sincere. The order he received was simply to teach Jian Wushuang a lesson, not to kill him. The Samsara Temple know about Jian Wushuang's overwhelming defensive power, so if they really wanted to kill him, they would have sent a celestial master instead of the Dao Master. Not even Dao Master Dreamless expected that after using his full strength, he would fail to even scratch Jian Wushuang. On the contrary, he had incited Jian Wushuang's discovery of his third sword principle. Now that Jian Wushuang had gained so much power, there was no point in continuing to fight. Thus he had clarified his intentions and apologized to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was shocked at the Dao Master's words. He thought that the Samsara Temple wanted to kill him, but it was far from the truth. Did Samsara Temple really only want to teach him a lesson as a punishment? The Green Fire Palace? Jian Wushuang was curious. It was not the first time he had heard of it. During the time that the royal palace of Tang of the East was besieged by 3 larger countries, the Tang Emperor nearly killed the other ruler. However, since the ruler was from the Green Fire Palace, the Tang Emperor had to spare him. For the second time, Jian Wushuang failed to discover what the Green Fire Palace was. Restraining his curiosity, Jian Wushuang refrained from asking about the palace. Dao Master, since you don't intend to kill me, then the Black Python clan. Jian Wushuang sent back a message through the token. We do not interfere with the business of the Black Python clan, so you may do as you please, Dao Master Dreamless said. Thank you for your permission. Jian Wushuang let out a smile as sharp as the edge of his blade. The crowd could not hear a single word of their conversation through the token. However, the battle they had witnessed was still at the forefront of their thoughts. How is this possible? Dao Master Dreamless performed a strike at Celestial Master level. How did he fail to kill Jian Wushuang? And how did Jian Wushuang discover his sword principle instead? What happened? Dian, Mo Lin, and many other experts from the Black Python clan were all baffled. Dian was trembling. Before this battle, Jian Wushuang could already him in terms of battle strength. But now, after Jian Wushuang successfully devised his third sword principle, he would be able to kill him easily. Mo Lin, let's go, Dian whispered. Mo Lin was reluctant to lose this chance, but he had to leave. Since they were no longer able to kill Jian Wushuang, the only option was to leave with the rest of the Black Python clan. Except just as they turned around, they heard a voice call out. You've really made yourselves at home, haven't you? Jian Wushuang's cold voice reverberated across the sky. Dian, Mo Lin, and other Black Python clan experts all stopped in their tracks and turned to regard Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, we're already about to leave. What do you want from us? Do you want us to stay forever? Dian questioned Jian Wushuang angrily. Yes, in fact I do. Jian Wushuang smiled quietly. Interesting. Dian snorted. I admit that since you've broken through, you are now more capable than me. But so what? I'm fast. I can outrun you easily. If you want me to stay forever, make me. Dian taunted. Both he and Mo Lin knew they could not match Jian Wushuang in terms of brute force. However, they both believed that they could outrun him easily. You're right, Dian. Under normal circumstances I can't outrun you. But look around yourself now. The severity of Jian Wushuang's voice sent a tremor through the listeners. At his own words, he secretly commanded his slaughter body. No one had discovered that his slaughter body set up dragon trapping spell formation in secret. The spell formation was complete and awaiting his signal. At his signal, his slaughter body activated the spell formation at once. All of a sudden, a transparent shield wove together to cover the nearby void in its entirety. Jian Wushuang, Diyan and Molin, and the other experts were all trapped. At that moment, Jian Wushuang's expression spoke death. There is no escape for anyone today. Chapter 1023, Kill Them All. Chapter 1023, Kill Them All. There is no escape for anyone today. Jian Wushuang spat out the sentence with murderous undertone, and darted out like a ghost. Oh no! Is this a trap? We're trapped! Seeing the enchanted walls rising around them, all the Black Python clansmen were stunned, especially Diyan and Emolin. They weren't stupid. They knew that the enchantment was a trap. But out of nowhere, the light of a powerful sword barreled toward the Black Python clansmen. Watch out! Diyan shouted. Just in time, the clansmen sensed the attack and retreated. But just as they turned around, why am I so slow? What has happened to me? To their surprise, they all discovered that they could no longer move at a normal pace, and couldn't dodge the sword's blow. It was as if they had been chained down. Without pause, a forceful consciousness attack landed upon them. Inside the enchantment, all the Black Python clan experts froze like a stone. They could only watch as Jian Wushuang's sword struck them. Swish! The remorseless blade split through their bodies in an instant. Back when he had only devised 2 sword principles, Jian Wushuang had managed to kill 8 Dao Masters with the Death Shadow. But now, it was much easier for him to slay these Black Python clan experts. In just a brief moment, all the clansmen had been eliminated except for Emolin and Diyan. Bastard! Emolin's eyes widened at the sight of the bloodshed. The noble protectors of his people had all been slain by Jian Wushuang in the blink of an eye. You must die too. Relenting to his murderous rage, Jian Wushuang rushed at Molin and Diyan. Oh no! Despair marked the faces of Diyan and Emolin. Also slowed down and trapped by the enchantment of the Chaos Gems, there was no path for them to escape. Stall him! It is not easy to maintain this enchantment. Diyan shouted. Emolin nodded resolutely, and they joined forces in an attempt to stop Jian Wushuang. Break! Jian Wushuang brandished his Blood Mountain sword. The mighty blow melded together the power of his 3 sword principles. Diyan lifted his hand and used all of his strength. Right beside him, Emolin waved a giant axe at Jian Wushuang savagely. 1 versus 2. But then, bam! Diyan let out a grunt as he was forced backward, and Emolin spat out a mouthful of blood. Death Shadow, Jian Wushuang's second move. The fast Death Shadow charged straight toward Emolin. Too fast. Not just fast, the blow was also filled with a consciousness attack. Already injured, Emolin struggled to hold himself up, and could do nothing to block the Death Shadow. No! Emolin screamed, but the sword didn't slow down. It slashed through his neck. Swish! A human head fell. The leader of the Black Python clan, Emolin, was dead. Damn! How is he so powerful? Diyan's hope died. He had expected Emolin to stop Jian Wushuang, as the enchantment around them was so difficult to sustain. He thought that if they could stall until the trap disappeared, they could run. Never in his wildest dream did he expect that Emolin would be killed in the blink of an eye. Jian Wushuang was far more capable than he thought. If he's dead, then there is no hope for me. Diyan looked desperate because he saw rage flash in Jian Wushuang's eyes. A bloodthirsty aura shrouded Jian Wushuang. It was so potent that Diyan could almost touch it. If they were anywhere, he would not have been so hopeless. But trapped in the enchantment and slower than normal, he could not fight Jian Wushuang. Dao Master Dreamless, please help me. Diyan turned his face toward Dao Master Dreamless in the nearby void. Desperation cracked his voice. Please, I'll remember your help forever. Please! Diyan was shouting at the top of his lungs. But Dao Master Dreamless stayed motionless with his arms folded. I've told you. I only came to deal with Jian Wushuang. Since I failed, I won't interfere anymore. This war between the Black Python clan and Jian Wushuang is none of my business. Dao Master Dreamless' merciless voice rang. Bastard! Diyan cursed. Jian Wushuang was now right in front of Diyan. Die! Without any hesitation, the Blood Mountain sword cut into Dian. Dian was almost defenseless, and after only 3 strikes, he was heavily injured. Jian Wushuang kept attacking him. "Stop, Jian Wushuang. I'm begging you," Dian cried. "Now you're begging me?" He just snorted and his barbaric expression didn't change. Jian Wushanag wanted to kill Dian more than he did the Black Python clan. Dian had caused him distress many a time, and Jian Wushuang hadn't been strong enough to return the favor. Now he would not hesitate to kill him. "No, you can't," Dian shrieked. "Jian Wushuang, my father is the Empyrean Patriarch. He's the Empyrean Patriarch." "The Empyrean Patriarch?" Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes, but did not stop. He just snorted again. "Who's he? I've never heard of him." "You." Dian was speechless. Before he could speak, a sword sliced into him. And this time he had no more words. Chapter 1024, Empyrean Patriarch. Chapter 1024, Empyrean Patriarch. Bang! The fierce blow pierced through Dian's protections and direly landed on his body. The power even drowned Dian's last screech and slew him quietly. Finally, when peace was once more restored, the void was gradually healing. "Is he dead?" The Rock Demon Clan's masters, including God Hong, all froze there stunned. They had witnessed the entire battle. Jian Wushuang had confronted Dao Master Dreamless and broken through. Now he actually annihilated the Black Python clan, along with Dian, with his thunderous strikes. Jian Wushuang really impressed them. They even failed to collect their thoughts yet. However, shortly after, among the Rock Demon clan, thunderous cheering echoed. "He's dead! The leader of the Black Python clan, Mo Lin, is dead." All the Black Python clan experts, all of them were killed by Master Wushuang alone. The crowd cheered. Jian Wushuang was not impressed. He stared coldly at the bodies on the ground and murmured to himself, "I've just created my Scarlet Yang sword principle, and haven't conjured a matching strong swordsmanship. Otherwise I could have killed Dian easily." Jian Wushuang was fully aware that he had achieved a brand new level after devising the Scarlet Yang sword principle. He was almost a celestial master, even could surpass Emperor Shao or Emperor Yin. Without a matching swordsmanship, he was unable to perform the third sword principle to the fullest extent. "Jian Wushuang," Dao Master Dreamless' voice rang. "I must admit that you're not only gifted but also brave." Dao Master Dreamless smiled. "When Dian told you about his father, you killed him still well." "Empyrean Patriarch?" Curious, Jian Wushuang had to ask, "Dao Master, who is Empyrean Patriarch? You really don't know him?" Dao Master Dreamless stared at Jian Wushuang in amazement. At that moment, he thought Jian Wushuang was playing dumb. He did not expect that Jian Wushuang was really unaware of Empyrean Patriarch. "To be honest, I come from Void Continent, and just arrived here recently. I don't know much about experts on Samsara Continent." Jian Wushuang admitted. "That explains. If you're born here, you would have known him." Dao Master Dreamless knitted his brows and cast a serious look at Jian Wushuang. "Jian Wushuang, you don't want to mess with Empyrean Patriarch. If I'm not mistaken, he must be a celestial master," said Jian Wushuang. Dian was already a Dao master at the peak of rank 3. If he talked someone before his death, that someone must be stronger than him, more capable than a celestial master. Right, he's a celestial master, and one of the troublesome kind. Dao Master Dreamless continued. "Have you seen Dian's bloodline?" "Yes, he's from the Sky Devouring clan," Jian Wushuang answered. "You're right," Dao Master Dreamless confirmed. "You must know that on Samsara Continent, there are many unique bloodlines of high value. Those bloodlines are rare and highly leveled. Even in the grand eternal chaotic world, Sky Devouring clan belongs to the rarest and the most valuable bloodlines. On Samsara Continent, there were 2 men with that bloodline. One is Dian, the other is his father, Empyrean Patriarch. Empyrean Patriarch has gained himself a reputation years ago. He even stands out among celestial masters. Moreover, he's wild and listens to no one. In the past, he was already famous for being murderous. In Greenfire World, everyone fears him. Even Samsara Temple, Though we've got lots of experts, however, except the temple master, he cares none of us. Peak populations of Samsara continent dare not to provoke him. So you may call him a wild, mad, and troublesome old monster. And you killed the monster's only son. What do you say? Do you think he'll seek a revenge? Hearing out Tao Master Dreamless, Jian Wushuang was stunned. Before he killed Di Yen, he vaguely guessed that Empyrean Patriarch was a celestial master. However, he did not expect such a notorious and strong celestial master. It was no good to be targeted by such a capable celestial master. To hell with it, if he wants a revenge on me he can try. Jian Wushuang just smiled. You're bold. Tao Master Dreamless shook his head smilingly. Or what? I've killed him. There's nothing I can do. Jian Wushuang remained calm. He never regretted one single of his decisions. Since he decided to kill Di Yen, he would pay whatever price that would cost. So what if Empyrean Patriarch sought his revenge? He had destroyed Dao Yuanzi, who was much stronger than Empyrean Patriarch. He would not be scared of the latter. Tao Master Dreamless, thanks to you, I've created my third sword principle. If it's convenient for you, why don't we stay for a drink? I happen to have something to ask you. He invited the Tao Master. Sure. Tao Master Dreamless accepted the invitation. Then, they headed straight to the city of the Rock Demon Clan, where they were warmly received. In a grand temple, Jian Wushuang and Tao Master Dreamless sat face to face. In between them, there was a table lined with cuisine and fine wines. They talked during the meal. The Rock Demon Clan experts stayed at the outside. Jian Wushuang, to be honest, are you really just an eternal realm? Tao Master Dreamless looked into Jian Wushuang's eyes. Chapter 1025 Green Fire Palace. Chapter 1025 Green Fire Palace. Are you really just an eternal realm expert? Upon hearing Tao Master Dreamless' question, Jian Wushuang smiled helplessly. I'm indeed at the eternal realm, but my bloodline power has already reached the Tao Master level. To be precise, I'm a Tao Master presently. Jian Wushuang was telling the truth. The inverse cultivator at the eternal realm was regarded as a Tao Master in the eternal chaotic world. His ancient god power had reached the 3-star level. In this aspect, he was on a par with a Tao Master as well. All this proved that he was qualified to be a Tao Master. Really? I assume you cannot be so powerful without other factors. Tao Master Dreamless sighed with emotion. After knocking a glass of wine back, Jian Wushuang smiled and asked casually, Tao Master Dreamless, mighty as you are, you probably are a rank 8 reincarnator, right? Yes. Tao Master Dreamless nodded. Overjoyed, Jian Wushuang immediately said seriously, Tao Master Dreamless, to be honest, I persuaded you to stay here because I hope you can do me a favor. Oh. Tao Master Dreamless raised his eyebrows, but he did not feel surprised. Tell me about it. I'll do my best if I can. Tao Master Dreamless was an amiable man. He relished networking with many people. He preferred to make contact with experts like Jian Wushuang, who was powerful and had great potentials. Normally, he would not refuse if he could assist them. Jian Wushuang said, 2,000 years ago, one of my close relatives was selected as the reincarnator by the Samsara Temple, but I haven't received any message from him until now. That was why I came here from the Void Continent. I'm looking for him. In order to do that, I paid a big price to Jin Yu, a gold-clothed deacon, but he failed to find him. Therefore, I have no other choice but to ask a rank 8 reincarnator for help. You want me to search for your relative using my powers? Tao Master Dreamless glanced at Jian Wushuang. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded solemnly. I'm ready to pay any price as long as you're willing to help me. Tao Master Dreamless frowned. Do you have difficulty doing that? Asked Jian Wushuang. I'm sorry. I can't help you with that. Tao Master Dreamless shook his head. Why? Jian Wushuang's heart knocked. I do want to help you. Tao Master Dreamless gave a wry smile. Considering your potential, if you don't die young, you definitely can become a top-notch person in the green fire world. I wish to make friends with you, or let you owe me a favor, but I can do nothing on this matter. Jian Wushuang, you may not know that the experts in the Samsara Temple are actually divided into two categories. The first kind is responsible for matters related to the selection of reincarnators, while the second kind is the law executors who are in charge of removing all obstacles for the Samsara Temple through battles. These two types of experts hold different posts. You can also regard them as two main factions. Neither side will intervene in each other's affairs. As a heaven-level law executor, my job is to fight on the battlefield. I have no control over the information about those reincarnators, and thus cannot aid you. I don't have the right to do that. Really, Jian Wushuang had a rather surprised look on his face. He always harbored the idea that as long as he found a rank 8 reincarnator, he could look up the information of all reincarnators below rank 8. However, things went contrary to his wishes. In fact, there were two major factions in the Samsara Temple. The law executors were only responsible for fighting outside. Jian Wushuang, you should ask inner elders for help. They are rank 8 reincarnators and are in charge of the selection of reincarnators. They should be very clear about the information of reincarnators below rank 8. Dao Master Dreamless said. Inner elder? Jian Wushuang bore this in mind. I seldom make contact with them, but I can introduce you the only one I am familiar with. Dao Master Dreamless added. Jian Wushuang's eyes immediately lit up. Although Dao Master Dreamless could not help him find his father's whereabouts, it would be very kind of him to introduce him an inner elder. That elder named Ding Mo. I'll send him a message. You just need to take this token to find him in the Divine Monster territory. That old man has a strange temper, but he ought to do me a favor and meet you. I just don't know when he plans to meet you. Dao Master Dreamless continued. Thank you a lot. Jian Wushuang took the token and said appreciatively. You're welcome. Dao Master Dreamless waved his hand casually. By the way, Dao Master Dreamless, I remember you mentioned the Green Fire Palace before. What's that? Jian Wushuang asked again. Green Fire Palace. Dao Master Dreamless had the yearning for it written on his face. He murmured. I just heard about that organization, but am not qualified to join it. So, I don't know much about it either. I just know it's the assembly site of top-notch experts in the Green Fire world. It has a high requirement on people who join it. Normally, only when one's strength reaches the Celestial Master level can he receive its invitation. Others who are qualified to join being the rulers of some forces that have power. In other words, 90% of the top-class experts and forces in the entire Green Fire world are its members. The Samsara Temple in the Samsara continent, the few advanced populations here, the Void Temple in the Void continent, and the 4 big countries are all its affiliates. Jian Wushuang was taken aback as he heard all this. As the overlords of 2 continents, the Samsara Temple and the Void Temple are just its members. How terrifying that organization is. Well, what about the Empyrean Patriarch? Jian Wushuang asked with a solemn face. According to what you've said, almost all of the top-class experts in the Green Fire world are its members. Given his strength, he should be able to join it, right? Of course. Dao Master Dreamless nodded. In terms of strength, he's indeed qualified to join the Green Fire Palace. But it's a pity that he's obstinate and unruly. Moreover, he's always overweening. It's said that when he broke through to the Celestial Master level, the Green Fire Palace had invited him, but he directly refused. Refused? Jian Wushuang looked at Dao Master Dreamless, dumbfounded. So many top experts, including the 2 temples, joined the Green Fire Palace. There must be something special about it. But why did Empyrean Patriarch refuse it? That's all I know about the Green Fire Palace. Jian Wushuang, if you want to know more, just practice hard. The Green Fire Palace will invite you after you break through to the Celestial Master level. You'll understand everything then. Dao Master Dreamless said. Chapter 1026 Wrath. Chapter 1026 Wrath. Dao Master Dreamless did not linger here any longer, but left soon. While leaving, he warned Jian Wushuang to guard against Empyrean Patriarch. After that, Jian Wushuang called on God Hong. Big Brother Hong, what happened to the Black Python clan? Asked Jian Wushuang. What could they do? God Hong said with a grin. You killed Mo Lin, as well as 90% of the experts of that clan. Thus, it is no longer qualified to be called an advanced population. Everyone tends to hit a person when he is down. This clan is doomed to disappear even without my clan taking any actions. It would be a blessing for it, if some of its clansmen have escaped. Jian Wushuang agreed with him secretly. He was aware that the battles between different populations on the Samsara continent were unusually crazy and cruel. Without him, the Rock Demon clan would have been exterminated. Chances were that only a few of its clansmen could escape. And thus, he caused the Black Python clan to fall on hard times. Jian Wushuang was quite helpless in this regard. Since the Black Python clan has been wiped out, there should be no population that can threaten the Rock Demon clan on this territory. It's time for me to leave, said Jian Wushuang. You are going to leave? God Hong's expression changed slightly. The 9 sword scars left behind by Sunrise Sword Emperor are not as useful to me as they used to be. Furthermore, I have something else to do, so I have to depart. Jian Wushuang said smilingly. All right, God Hong said with a nod. Well, what about Empyrean Patriarch? When God Hong was on the battlefield previously, he heard Dao Master Dreamless mention Empyrean Patriarch. He is a threat to me, but he can do nothing to me. Jian Wushuang said with confidence. Great. God Hong sighed with relief. Big Brother Hong, see you then. After giving God Hong some advice, Jian Wushuang bid farewell to him and left. He came to the Rock Demon clan for returning God Hong's favor in the ancient world. He had done what he could, and there was no need for him to linger any longer. His next destination was the Divine Monster territory. This was where Elder Ding Mo was at. There existed an enormous but secluded castle that was surrounded by dark airflow hundreds of millions of miles away from the Rock Demon clan in a vast range of mountains. It stood erect over the years, but few people nearby perceived its existence. Out of blue, a terrifying aura emanated from this black castle. This aura spread far and wide along with overwhelming rage and pressure. It influenced untold warriors and some Dao masters in a common population tens of thousands of miles away, resulting them to tremble with fear. All these warriors were in a state of panic. Died? My son Dian is dead? A short-haired, lean elder stood in the void above the black castle. The ferocious look in his eyes made him look more arrogant and obstinate. His name, Empyrean Patriarch, terrified all the people on the Samsara continent. At this moment, Empyrean Patriarch was quivering, his eyes blazing with fury. Undisciplined and out of control, he was quite a strange character who always tyrannized other people on the Samsara continent. Moreover, as a member of the Sky-Devouring clan, he had an inborn fondness of his only son and took very good care of him. This was a known fact to all experts and populations on the Samsara continent. Therefore, even though they knew that Di Yin was running amok and had devoured the essence blood of some rare bloodlines, they could only turn a blind eye for fear of provoking Empyrean Patriarch. Everyone there deferred to Empyrean Patriarch. Even if Di Yin had taken too far sometimes and displeased some top experts, they only slightly punished him, but did not dare to kill him due to Empyrean Patriarch. That had been the case for years. No one had ever thought that his son would have been killed today. Jian Wushuang. Empyrean Patriarch growled. He was informed of his son's death, and the information about the killer at the same time. An expert majored in sword principle named Jian Wushuang. To his surprise, Jian Wushuang was merely at the Eternal Realm. How dare you killed him as you knew his identity? I don't care your identity, your background and origin. I swear I must kill you. You definitely will come to a tragic end. Where are my 10 protectors? Empyrean Patriarch's roar echoed throughout the world. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Quick as a flash, 10 figures flew out of the castle and appeared in front of Empyrean Patriarch. They knelt down before him immediately, paying respects to Ancestor. Their voices were ear-splitting. All of them were powerful Dao Masters and 3 of them were peak rank 3 Dao Masters. Moreover, they were experts who sought refuge with Empyrean Patriarch. Follow me. Empyrean Patriarch waved his sleeve, and they set off at once. He went to the Samsara temple to borrow the wormhole. The wormhole would not open to the outside world easily, but the Samsara temple was obliged to give him face given his ferocity. It only took him a few days to arrive at the territory of the Rock Demon clan through the wormhole. Did my son die here? Floating in the void above the Rock Demon clan, Empyrean Patriarch gave off a horrible pressure. It came crushing down upon the members of this clan and subdued them. Wave after wave shrill cries rang out, and a large number of its clansmen knelt down under the pressure. Stop! Stop! A voice mixed with shock and anger sounded, and then God Hong arrived here together with some top experts from the Rock Demon clan. As soon as he appeared in the void, he saw Empyrean Patriarch. The latter emanated a horrifying pressure that he could hardly resist. Celestial Master, he is a Celestial Master. God Hong clenched his fists after he figured out the identity of the man in front of him. I'm God Hong, the clan leader of the Rock Demon clan, paying respects to Empyrean Patriarch. God Hong said respectfully. Where is Jian Wushuang? Chapter 1027, Friendly Relations. Chapter 1027, Friendly Relations. Where is Jian Wushuang? Empyrean Patriarch's voice sounded extremely cold. Neither did he care God Hong nor the Rock Demon clan. He only had Jian Wushuang in his mind. Hearing his words, God Hong quivered with fear. But he still answered. Jian Wushuang left here a few days ago. Where did he go? Empyrean Patriarch stared at God Hong. I don't know. God Hong shook his head. You don't know? Empyrean Patriarch said with a rather cold voice. All of a sudden, a terrifying pressure swept toward God Hong. Although God Hong was a rank 3 Dao Master, who possessed the bloodline of the Rock Demon Giant and formidable defense capability, he was suppressed by this pressure. Pfft! He directly spat a mouthful of blood, and his internal injuries, which had not been completely recovered, were again aggravated. However, he had no time to attend this matter, and wiped the blood from his mouth. He said hurriedly, Empyrean Patriarch, I really don't know where he went. Really? Empyrean Patriarch didn't ask any more, but his cold eyes looked at the habitat of the Rock Demon clan below. My son died here. This is his burial place. Thus, there can be no living creatures within a radius of 10,000 miles. Millions of your clansmen must die and be buried with him. Empyrean Patriarch said in a mild tone, which unexpectedly contained overwhelming killing intent. The two simple sentences sentenced the entire Rock Demon clan to death. After they heard that, the expressions of the 10 protectors behind Empyrean Patriarch turned grim. They all relished slaughtering, and had slain a lot of people on the Samsara continent. The reason why they sought refuge with Empyrean Patriarch was that they were pursued by some powerful populations and experts from the Samsara continent. They had no other choice. Hearing that Empyrean Patriarch was going to exterminate the Rock Demon clan, they all got excited. Nevertheless, the expressions of God Hong and other experts from this clan changed sharply. Empyrean Patriarch, there is a special place in our clan, and I wish you can follow me and have a look at it. Suddenly God Hong said seriously. Oh. Empyrean Patriarch's expression slightly altered. At a critical moment when he planned to wipe out the Rock Demon clan, God Hong said he wanted to take him to another place. Did he think that place could change his decision? Empyrean Patriarch, please follow me. God Hong managed to restrain his fear, and led Empyrean Patriarch into the territory of his clan. With a mighty strength, Empyrean Patriarch feared nothing. He followed God Hong, and arrived at the valley where Jian Wushuang had meditated earlier after a short while. Empyrean Patriarch, look at there. God Hong pointed at the cliff dotted with sword scars. Empyrean Patriarch's eyes swept across the cliff, and he noticed the 9 sword scars on it with a glance. Then he started to look through them. When he saw the first sword scar, a trace of disdain flashed past his eyes. And when he glanced over the second sword scar, he was still unimpressed with it. However, A little bit of surprise flashed past his eyes as he observed the third sword scar. When he scanned the fourth, fifth, and sixth sword scars, his face gradually grew solemn. And when he fixed his eyes on the seventh sword scar, a hint of horror could be seen in his eyes. The moment his eyes swept across the ninth sword scar, his heart knocked and eyes popped. What a terrifying sword! He was a man of powerful strength and had experienced a lot. Therefore, he was very clear about the horror of the sword that left the ninth sword scar. That sword was so fast that no one in this world could block its attack, including him. Although there are numerous experts who study sword principle in the entire Green Fire world, only one is qualified to display such a horrible swordsmanship. The first sword cultivator, Sunrise Sword Emperor. His eyes flickered with cold light. Empyrean Patriarch, I assume you have recognized the owner of the sword scars. God Hong said. So what? Empyrean Patriarch replied in a deep voice. Nothing. I just want you to know that my clan is on friendly terms with the legendary Sunrise Sword Emperor. 20,000 years ago, he passed by and happened to gain insight into sword principle. As a result, he stayed here and meditated in this valley for 2 years. We have provided him everything we could during this period. When he left, he deliberately left these sword scars in our clan. God Hong said calmly. Jian Wushuang is a sword cultivator, and he stayed here due to the sword scars. Just at this moment, Di Yan and the Black Python clan invaded here and disturbed him. He then acted and killed them. He did all this for his sake. He knew he killed your son and provoked you. Hence, he left directly regardless of our safety. You mean your clan has nothing to do with this matter? Empyrean Patriarch cast a cold glance at God Hong. Since Di Yan died on our territory, we cannot shrink from the responsibility. I just want to tell you that we are kind of close to Sunrise Sword Emperor, but not familiar with Jian Wushuang. His only purpose of staying here is to study the sword scars. God Hong added. Upon hearing this, Empyrean Patriarch narrowed his eyes. He was far from a fool, and naturally would not blindly believe what God Hong had said. Given his character, even if God Hong disowned Jian Wushuang, he would exterminate the Rock Demon clan without hesitation. The reason why he didn't take action was that he feared Sunrise Sword Emperor immensely. The sword scars in this valley were definitely left by Sunrise Sword Emperor. He could tell that they actually had existed for 20,000 years from their appearances. The Rock Demon clan, however, had been living here over the past hundreds of thousands of years. God Hong did tell the truth. In other words, the Rock Demon clan did have friendly relations with Sunrise Sword Emperor. This meant he must look before he leapt. Sunrise Sword Emperor. His mind quivered with fear at this name. There were very few people in the entire Green Fire world that could cause him to fear. But Sunrise Sword Emperor was definitely the one who was able to do so. Chapter 1028 Generosity. Chapter 1028 Generosity. Sunrise Sword Emperor was a myth in the Green Fire world, a bloody one. Though he became famous later than Empyrean Patriarch, he was far more powerful than him. Most important of all, he was a capricious loner. He killed others to his liking without any scruples at all. Like Samsara Temple Master and Void Temple Master, Empyrean Patriarch admired their strength, but did not fear them too much. After all, they were detached and had quite a lot of things to worry about. Thus, they would never kill him unless he crossed the bottom lines of the Green Fire world. But Sunrise Sword Emperor was different. If he destroyed the Rock Demon clan today and annoyed him, it was perfectly possible for him to kill him and leave him no chance to escape. It was Jian Wushuang who killed my son. If I exterminate this population in order to vent my anger, but offend Sunrise Sword Emperor, that's definitely not a good thing for me. Empyrean Patriarch murmured and produced a result. Let's go. He waved his hand, turned around and left. The 10 protectors behind him were greatly surprised at this. They thought that Empyrean Patriarch would eliminate the Rock Demon clan, however. They followed Empyrean Patriarch and did not dare to ask more questions. Empyrean Patriarch, please forgive me for not seeing you out. God Hong and other experts finally sighed with relief after Empyrean Patriarch left. Then God Hong took out a token. Jian Wushuang, Empyrean Patriarch, did cause me trouble, and even planned to wipe out my clan personally. But as you told me, I took him to that valley and declared that we have friendly relations with Sunrise Sword Emperor, but are unfamiliar with you. He then left directly. God Hong sent out such a message. Jian Wushuang, who still stayed in somewhere in this territory, that was even not far from the Rock Demon clan, received this message. A smile crept over the corners of his mouth. It's exactly as I expected. Jian Wushuang laughed gently. He conjectured that given Empyrean Patriarch's character, there was a good chance that he would vent his anger on the Rock Demon clan. So when leaving there, he had a word with God Hong, and told him to take Empyrean Patriarch there. This result lived up to his expectations. Though Empyrean Patriarch is intractable, he must fear Sunrise Sword Emperor. He is not so foolish to risk offending Sunrise Sword Emperor in order to eliminate the Rock Demon clan. Jian Wushuang murmured. That's owed to Sunrise Sword Emperor's deterrence. What if Empyrean Patriarch is not afraid of him? What should you do then? Gu King suddenly snorted. Don't think that I don't know you could have left this territory a few days ago, but you choose to stay here. Obviously, you are worried about the Rock Demon clan. If he really attacks that clan, you will immediately show up, right? Hearing this, Jian Wushuang smiled helplessly and did not say much. He did prepare to turn up to divert Empyrean Patriarch's attention if he really attacked the Rock Demon clan. Of course, he would only use his slaughter body, and would not be so foolish to put his life in the hands of Empyrean Patriarch. Jian Wushuang, I won't stop you from doing so in the Green Fire world, but I must warn you that you mustn't incur unnecessary trouble and get involved in something that doesn't concern you when you are in the eternal chaotic world. Don't forget how my last master King Luozhen died. Gu King said solemnly. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded in agreement. Later he looked up at the void in front of him. It's time to go to the Divine Monster territory. I have just created the third sword principle, Scarlet Yang Sword Principle, but I haven't contrived any swordsmanship that matches it. Furthermore, there are also many shortcomings in the ruthlessness that I designed for the Coalescence Sword Principle. I need to study hard. Jian Wushuang finally set off. It was a long way from where he was now to the Divine Monster territory, and it would take him a dozen years, even if he moved at top speed. Moreover, he would delve into his sword principles and swordsmanships on the trip. Thus, he would spend more time on the journey. He was not in a hurry because he had enough patience. During the stop-and-go journey, he made some progress in sword principles. And in the third year that he left the Rock Demon clan, he received 2 messages in one day. They were from Dragon Wing Governor and Dao Master Dreamless. The contents of the 2 messages were almost the same. Jian Wushuang, Empyrean Patriarch, went mad. He offered a reward of 20 Chaos Gems for capturing you on the entire Samsara continent. Whoever finds your trail and sends him the message will get 20 Chaos Gems. In addition, he deliberately stated that you are at the Eternal Realm, but your battle strength reaches the peak of rank 3 Dao Master level. By the way, he told everyone that you are a warrior major in sword principle. Presently, all populations on the Samsara continent and some solitary experts went bananas. A lot of people began to track you. Jian Wushuang, you must be very careful. Apart from that, don't act rashly. Once you reveal your battle strength, others can recognize you as easy as pie. Dragon Wing Governor had a good relationship with Jian Wushuang. Moreover, Jian Wushuang saved him, and he appreciated that a lot. And Dao Master Dreamless was a friend of Jian Wushuang. As soon as they knew this, they immediately informed Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was dumbfounded after receiving the news. Offer a reward of 20 Chaos Gems for capturing me? He looked shocked and could not help but exclaim. How generous he is. That was not exaggerating. Everyone knew that a Chaos Gem was almost worth the fortune of a rank 3 Dao Master. A peak rank 3 Dao Master possessed 4 to 5 Chaos Gems at most. However, Empyrean Patriarch took out 20 Chaos Gems at a time. Furthermore, he did not mean to kill Jian Wushuang with the 20 Chaos Gems. Whoever informed him Jian Wushuang's trace could obtain them. Jian Wushuang believed once the news spread, there must be numerous experts on the Samsara continent searching for him crazily. Chapter 1029 Divine Monster Territory. Chapter 1029 Divine Monster Territory. As Jian Wushuang expected, the entire Samsara continent was startled by the news. Many populations, including some advanced and top populations, and countless solitary experts, were astounded by that. They could gain 20 Chaos Gems simply by conveying the trace of a person to Empyrean Patriarch. Even celestial masters were tempted by that. Crazy, everyone on the entire Samsara continent went crazy. The scene shifted to a dim hall, the secluded headquarters of another powerful force on the Samsara continent. This force specialized in intelligence. A purple-clothed woman looked at the information she just attained with burning eyes. Issue my order immediately. Do our utmost to find Jian Wushuang in the shortest possible time. 20 Chaos Gems. I'll obtain them as long as I track down an easily identified Eternal Realm expert. I must find him as soon as possible. Several black-robed men got together on the top floor of a towering pavilion. The value of 20 Chaos Gems are almost equal to all the treasures of a celestial master. Empyrean Patriarch is really generous. We've confirmed the news and our priority is to chase down Jian Wushuang quickly. One of the black-robed men said in a deep voice. People in our Divine Shadow Gang are adept at intelligence, and only a few forces can rival us on the Samsara continent. It's time to give our capability full play. Jian Wushuang is a young man who is skilled at using the sword. Though he is at the Eternal Realm, he's quite powerful. We must find him before any other forces and populations can. Issue the red order and ask everyone to find him. In a top population, an emaciated and glum elder cackled from time to time when he glanced through the information in his hands. I rarely see Empyrean Patriarch fly into a rage. His reaction is reasonable. After all, his precious was killed by someone else. He 20 Chaos Gems. This old man is quite generous in order to avenge his son's death. Ask our men to pay attention to the killer. 20 Chaos Gems are by no means a small amount of money. They can strengthen our force to some extent. All populations, some top forces, and many solitary experts on the Samsara continent sprang into action immediately. Everyone began to keep an eye on a man at the Eternal Realm, who was good at sword principle and powerful, than normal rank 3 Dao Masters. Jian Wushuang already speculated that, but did not care too much. He still did what he ought to do, and continually studied swordsmanships. In fact, he was not so much anxious as happy. That meant he was already famous on the entire Samsara continent. He made a name for himself without doing anything. And if his father was still on the Samsara continent, and already a reincarnator above rank 7, he definitely would learn the news. In other words, his father would know that he already came here to find him. Therefore they could gather together without much effort. Jian Wushuang was more careful when studying sword principles and swordsmanships on the trip. Moreover, he always restrained himself from acting rashly. There was a crowd of Eternal Realm experts who were skilled in sword principle on the Samsara continent. As long as he did not act rashly or expose the strength that far surpassed the supposed strength of Eternal Realm experts, no one would recognize him. But if he did, he would give away his identity. Time flied. It took Jian Wushuang whole 50 years to arrive at the Divine Monster Territory, although no accident happened on the trip. Divine Monster Territory. Jian Wushuang stood on the top of a mountain and overlooked the vast territory before him with a glimmer of light in his eyes. Unlike other places on the Samsara continent, the Divine Monster Territory was more extensive. Most importantly, there existed far more experts. As a piece of the most prosperous and broad territory on the Samsara continent, it was the gathering place for experts and elites on the Samsara continent. The headquarters of the top forces on this continent was in the divine monster territory. The same for some top populations. Top populations? Jian Wushuang looked at the star map in his hand and murmured. He knew something about those populations. There were 4 top populations on the Samsara continent, namely the Ancient Monster Clan, the Blood Azura Clan, the Python Clan, and the Blood Phoenix Clan. They were deeply rooted on this continent, and were formidable forces that possessed abundant resources. Even the Samsara Temple did not dare to act recklessly on matters concerning them. The reason they became top populations was that they possessed at least one celestial master. I have achieved great progress in sword principles and swordsmanships over the past 50 years. In addition, my ancient god power improved drastically because I have swallowed the Chaos Gold Bead. Jian Wushuang muttered. Since the Chaos Gold Bead was a very rare treasure, it would inevitably help him to improve his ancient god power very quickly. Over the years, my ancient god power has reached a new level, although it's far from reaching the 3-star peak. My strength has increased by leaps and bounds as well. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists. However, there are innumerable experts in the divine monster territory, and I'm threatened by Empyrean Patriarch, so I still have to keep a low profile. First, I got to find Ding Mo, the elder that Tao Master Dreamless introduced to me. Jian Wushuang moved forward and entered the divine monster territory. It was dotted with numerous large cities, and there existed one city named Emperor Heart City. And that was where Ding Mo was at. He not only lived in this city, but he was also the governor. He established a large-scale team of guards with a number of Tao masters. Not to mention his identity in the Samsara Temple, his strength alone was equivalent to that of an advanced population. Chapter 1030 Hope. Chapter 1030 Hope. Great! Ding Mo is not only the elder of the Samsara Temple, but also an overlord who governs such a large city. After strolling around the Emperor Heart City for a while, and admiring the prosperity of the city in his heart, Jian Wushuang went directly to the governor mansion to visit Ding Mo. However, he was stopped by 2 guards in front of the mansion. I am introduced by the heaven-level law executor, Tao Master Dreamless of the Samsara Temple. I asked to see Elder Ding Mo for something urgent. This is the token Tao Master Dreamless gave me. Please report my request to Elder Ding Mo. Jian Wushuang took out the token and handed it to one of the guards. The 2 guards looked at each other. They served as Ding Mo's guards a long time ago, and naturally heard of Tao Master Dreamless. Meanwhile, they knew he had a good relationship with their governor. After knowing that this man was introduced by Tao Master Dreamless, they did not dare to neglect him, and one of them immediately informed their governor of his arrival. A moment later, the guard who went into the mansion to send the message came out and said, "Your Excellency, our governor is waiting for you." Oh! Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up. Previously, Tao Master Dreamless told him that Ding Mo was odd, and he would meet him, but not necessarily immediately. Now, however, that did not seem to be the case. Following that guard, he walked into the governor mansion and soon came to a lofty hall. The hall was fairly grand. When he entered it, he saw a white-robed elder sitting at the highest place in the hall. Noticing his arrival, the white-robed elder opened his eyes and asked the guard to leave with a motion of his hand. At the same time, a layer of immaterial restriction rose around the hall and covered the entire hall within. Thus, there were only Jian Wushuang and the white-robed elder in this enormous hall. Jian Wushuang, Empyrean Patriarch is tracking you crazily, and all the forces and populations on the Samsara continent are desperately finding your whereabouts in order to obtain 20 Chaos Gems. Normal people have already found a place to hide at this critical moment. However, you came here to find me publicly. Ding Mo said, wearing a meaningful smile. Jian Wushuang said with a smile, "Tao Master Dreamless informed you of my identity, right?" Tao Master Dreamless? He just told me that an Eternal Realm expert would visit me with his token, but didn't mention your name. Nonetheless, he is arrogant and has no junior or disciple. How could he assist an ordinary Eternal Realm expert? Besides, I know he was on a mission to the Rock Demon clan not long ago. So long as I think about all this carefully, I can figure out your identity, Ding Yemo said casually. Hearing his words, Jian Wushuang laughed helplessly. Right, I'm Jian Wushuang. I wonder whether Elder Ding Yemo will send this message to Empyrean Patriarch for the 20 Chaos Gems? Ding Yemo narrowed his eyes and overlooked Jian Wushuang, only to discover that he was calm and composed as before. He burst out laughing and said, No wonder Dao Master Dreamless thinks highly of you. Not to mention your talent and strength, your composure alone is rarely seen. You have my assurance. Although 20 Chaos Gems are something of great value, and I am tempted by them too, I will never plot against the man that Dao Master Dreamless recommended to me for them. Many thanks, Jian Wushuang replied calmly. Take a seat. Ding Yemo waved his hand, and a chair appeared out of blue behind Jian Wushuang. Moreover, a long narrow table with wine and food on it emerged in front of Jian Wushuang as well. Jian Wushuang sat down and took a sip of wine. Dao Master Dreamless has messaged me your request. Although it is troublesome, it's not something difficult for me. Ding Yemo chuckled and stared at Jian Wushuang. What's your relative's name? His name is Jian Nantian. He became the reincarnator in the ancient world 2,000 years ago. Jian Wushuang replied hurriedly. Fine. I'll check it for you immediately, but it will take about half a month. Ding Yemo said. Half a month? Why will it take so long? Jian Wushuang frowned. Ding Yemo glanced at Jian Wushuang and said, Dao Master Dreamless told me that you have asked a gold-clothed deacon to look up the information about your relative, right? Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded heavily. If I am right, did that gold-clothed deacon reply you soon? Ding Yemo looked at Jian Wushuang smilingly. Yes, he provided me with the result in 3 days. Jian Wushuang replied. Haha, I knew it. Ding Yemo laughed. Dao Master Dreamless told me the things happened between you and that gold-clothed deacon. The gold-clothed deacon went through the motions, just in order to acquire your reward. Went through the motions? Jian Wushuang's face fell. Did Jian you never look it up for me? I didn't mean that. Ding Yemo shook his head. He checked the information simply according to the name you gave him, and replied to you after he failed to find your relative's name. In fact, in the Samsara Temple, reincarnators usually take code names for the sake of convenience and concealment. Their code names are a must if anyone wants to look up their information. Their real names are ignored instead. So, if Jinyu really wanted to aid you, he would look up the information according to your relative's origin and the time he has become a reincarnator. Only in this way can he receive an exact result. Oh, Jian Wushuang replied in shock. Jian Wushuang, since you are introduced by Dao Master Dreamless and I admire your talent and composure, I will wholeheartedly find out the whereabouts of your loved one for you. Therefore, it will take more time to do that. You should know that I've tried my best to shorten the time to half a month. Ding Yemo said. Many thanks to Elder Ding Yemo for doing all this for me. Jian Wushuang said sincerely. Haha, nothing. If you have nothing to do during this period, just stay here temporarily. I'll inform you of the result half a month later. Ding Yemo waved his hand, and then left with a quick move. Jian Wushuang alone stood there and clenched his fists. What Ding Yemo just said thrilled him. According to what Elder Ding Yemo has said, Jinyu just checked the information of reincarnators perfunctorily. That means chances are that my father is a reincarnator below rank 7, and Jinyu just failed to find him. So my father is probably alive. Chapter 1031, It's Him. Chapter 1031, It's Him. Jian Wushuang lived in Ding Mo's mansion to wait for the result. 5 days passed in the twinkling of an eye. Jian Wushuang alone practiced his swordsmanship in an empty courtyard. Buzz! A splendid sword shadow pierced the void easily and disappeared from the void quickly, leaving an opening on space. It was so fast that it could not be caught by the naked eye. This sword movement proved to be the death shadow. Jian Wushuang stopped after performing this sword movement. This move is getting more and more powerful. Jian Wushuang murmured smilingly. He had been meditating swordsmanship and sword principle these years. As a result, his sword principle was greatly improved, and the power of his swordsmanship elevated. Though his Aurora sword principle was still at the general level, it was not far from reaching the universe level. Moreover, his coalescence sword principle, he had been trying to integrate more sword principles into it. Currently, he had integrated 8 sword principles from the mysterious scroll into it, and combined 8 different essences together. Until now, the coalescence sword principle barely became an Earth-level sword principle. He had created 2 universe-level sword principles, and a general-level sword principle presently. The more powerful the sword principle one created, the more beneficial it would be on elevating one's strength. It's easy to create universe-level sword principles, but it will be quite difficult to upgrade them to the creation level. I cannot imagine how long will it take to make them the most powerful sword principles. Jian Wushuang muttered. His goal was to make them the most powerful sword principles. Although he had created 3 sword principles, there was still a long way for him to go. Right at this moment, several figures suddenly flew upward from the mansion. They proved to be Ding Mo and several experts under his command. They appeared in the void above the mansion and looked into the distance, as if they were waiting for someone. Who is able to make Elder Ding Mo welcome him personally? Jian Wushuang was surprised. As the inner elder of the Samsara Temple, Ding Mo enjoyed a high status and was absolutely qualified to be called an overlord on the Samsara continent. Thus, the people he was waiting for must be very eminent. In just a few seconds, 3 figures came here one after another. All of them exuded an overwhelming aura. Apparently, they were rank 3 Dao Masters. The 2 men standing beside a striking young man dressed in a golden robe were genuine experts at the peak of rank 3. The young man always wore a smile and appeared gentle and cultivated. The most striking part was his midbrow. There existed a vertical scarlet mark, a sword scar. Seeing them, Ding Mo and others experts greeted them immediately. In the courtyard, Jian Wushuang stared at that golden-robed man. He was very familiar with that man. His face had appeared in his mind more than once. After so many years, he finally saw him again. It's him! It's him! Jian Wushuang roared in his heart, and his eyes became sharper than ever at this moment. Jian Wushuang, do you know him? Gu Qing's surprised voice sounded in Jian Wushuang's heart. Yes, of course. Jian Wushuang's cold voice filled with tremendous killing intent. Jian Wushuang soon regained his composure and simultaneously looked away. That elegant man was talking with Ding Mo at this point, so he did not notice Jian Wushuang. Led by Ding Mo, he entered the meeting hall at the center of the governor mansion. Jian Wushuang instantly went to find an expert living in the governor mansion. Ding Mo possessed many powerful guards whose commanders were real Dao Masters. Some commanders lived in the governor mansion. Commander Su. Jian Wushuang came to a commander surnamed Su. Blood Mountain, my brother, what's up? Commander Su was quite polite to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang used the alias Blood Mountain. When he lived in the governor mansion, Commander Su had met him and knew that he was Ding Mo's guest. The one being able to be Ding Mo's guest definitely had an extraordinary background. So even if he was aware that Jian Wushuang was just an Eternal Realm expert, he did not dare to put on airs. Nothing. I am just curious why Elder Ding Mo greeted the 3 people who have just arrived personally. I speculate that they must be out of the ordinary. Jian Wushuang seemed to ask casually. They? Commander Su raised his eyebrows and laughed. Of course. They are from the ancient monster clan. The ancient monster clan? Jian Wushuang's heart throbbed. The ancient monster clan was one of the 4 top populations. It turns out that they are experts from a top population. Jian Wushuang pretended to sigh with emotion. Haha, our master would not have welcomed them in person just due to that reason. What matters the most is the man standing in the middle, the Dao Master 9 sword. Although his strength is inferior to that of the other 2 men, he enjoys quite a high status in the ancient monster clan. The 2 Dao Masters behind him were sent to protect him by the ancient monster clan. Commander Su said. Dao Master Nine Sword? Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed. Is he very powerful? I don't know. I only know he is well known in the divine monster territory. It's said that the ancient monster clan regards him as a treasure. But I cannot figure out what's so special about him. If you're curious about him, you can go to any intelligence organization to acquire his information. Commander Su said. I see. Jian Wushuang nodded. Thank you, Commander Su. After that, he turned around and left. According to what Commander Su had said, he left the governor mansion and found a store that sold intelligence in the city. Soon afterwards, he obtained detailed information about the ancient monster clan and Dao Master Nine Sword. Then he returned to the governor mansion, closed the door, and leafed through the information alone. His pupil shrank and some cold light flickered in his eyes after he glanced over the information about the ancient monster clan. As I expected, the ancient monster clan is the population with the bloodline of the ancient god. Jiuxiu no Dao Master Nine Sword, after 2,000 years, we finally meet again. Chapter 1032, Ancient Monster Clan and Dao Master Nine Sword. Chapter 1032, Ancient Monster Clan and Dao Master Nine Sword. Jiuxiu. Jian Wushuang could feel his heart brimming with killing intent upon thinking about the name. It was him who had kidnapped his mother and snatched his father's sword soul in the ancient world previously. The fiend had even destroyed the Ji clan personally. Jian Wushuang had seen Jiuxiu before. Of course, at that time, the latter was only a wisp of consciousness that had possessed a puppet fighter. After the incident, Jian Wushuang and his father climbed their way to the summit of the ancient world. But neither of them knew that Jiuxiu had brought Jian Wushuang's mother back to the ancient world long ago. His father, Jian Nantian, had decided to make the irreversible decision to become a reincarnator once he knew about it. As such, if it were not for Jiuxiu, many things would not have happened. Jian Wushuang felt an unprecedented hatred toward Jiuxiu. Now, after 2,000 years, he finally got to meet Jiuxiu again. It's him, everything happened because of him, Jian Wushuang thought, his gaze turning icy cold. If it weren't for him, my father would never have taken the risk of becoming a reincarnator, and he would have been reunited with my mother a long time ago. They would not have been separated for so long until now. There's also the issue of the Ji clan. They were exterminated because of Jiuxiu's doing. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists tightly. He wished he could torture Jiuxiu slowly, but his enemy's current status amazed him. Not only did Jiuxiu have the power of a rank 3 Dao Master, but he also had a huge standing in the ancient monster clan. He had 2 peak rank 3 experts serving as his guards. It was a privilege few in the ancient monster clan enjoyed. Ancient Monster Clan. Jian Wushuang finished reading his research material. He now had a certain knowledge of the clan. Not only was the Ancient Monster Clan one of the top clans, but it was also arguably the strongest clan out of the 4 top clans. Their people even had 2 types of bloodlines. The first bloodline was that of the ancient gods. As for the second, it was that of the heavenly monsters. The Ancient Monster Clan is extraordinary. Gu Qing's voice rang in Jian Wushuang's mind. Needless to say, the ancient gods were at the apex of the eternal chaotic world, and their bloodline was extremely precious and dominant. As for the heavenly demons, they were also extremely famous, and even though they were somewhat weaker than the ancient gods, the difference between both lineages was not too great. It was extremely rare to have any one of these 2 bloodlines, so it's very strange for the ancient monster clan to possess both. Jian Wushuang's expression was extremely serious as he listened. He had been mired in doubt as to how he came to possess the bloodline of the ancient gods, but everything was clear to him now. Perhaps, my mother is from the ancient monster clan, Jian Wushuang thought. The combined might of the ancient monster clan was extremely great because of the fact that it possessed the 2 great bloodlines. There were already 3 celestial masters and countless strong Dao masters within the clan. It possessed so much strength that even the Samsara temple dared not take it lightly. As for Jiuxiu, the Dao Master Nine Sword, he seemed to have been treated by the clan as a precious treasure, because he had awoken an extremely rare bloodline. That said, if my mother was really from the ancient monster clan, why would she go to the ancient world? And that Jiuxiu, said Jian Wushuang as he frowned. To that, Jian Wushuang, I might know of a possibility, replied Gu King. What possibility? Asked Jian Wushuang. Reincarnation. Gu King replied, his tone solemn. What? Jian Wushuang exclaimed as his eyes opened wide. Reincarnation, he thought. What reincarnation is he referring to? Could it be that kind that means one gets reborn into the world after death? In the eternal chaotic world, one could get reborn and get a chance to cultivate again. If your mother really awoke the heavenly monster bloodline, there's a high possibility that reincarnation was involved, said Gu King. Jian Wushuang winced as he heard the words of Gu King. He was experiencing huge emotional upheaval. Reincarnation. It was the first time he had heard the term, and it made him feel extremely alarmed. That said, aside from his alarm, he came to understand many more things. I understand now. I understand everything now. Jian Wushuang let out a stream of air lightly. He began to understand that many of his deductions were true. It's a pity that even though this material is extremely detailed, it did not mention anything about my mother, Jian Wushuang said, shaking his head as he held the documents. Now that he had discovered the whereabouts of Jiuxiu, he wanted to find an opportunity to kill him, but the more pressing matter was to find out where his mother was. To find out where my mother is currently, I have to act from Jiuxiu, Jian Wushuang proclaimed, a murderous gaze in his eyes. What are you planning to do, Jian Wushuang? Gu King's voice rang out again. Don't forget, there are 2 Dao masters at the peak of rank 3 by his side. You have basically not much hope of making a move against Jiuxiu under their watchful eyes. I know that, Jian Wushuang replied as he nodded slightly. He understood that it would not be easy to get to Jiuxiu. After all, he did not merely wish to defeat or even kill Jiuxiu. He wanted to capture his enemy alive or subdue him, so that he could interrogate him. Capturing him alive will be much harder than defeating or killing him outright. Putting the interference from the 2 Dao masters aside, I don't even have much confidence of subduing Jiuxiu in a head-on contest. Furthermore, Empyrean Patriarch has placed a bounty of 20 chaos gems on my head. If I were to remain in hiding, no one would be able to identify me, but if I move against Jiuxiu, my identity will be exposed, and there will be even more trouble when Empyrean Patriarch comes chasing after me, he thought. Even though the path ahead is fraught with obstacles, it's the only way if I want to find out where my mother is, exclaimed Jian Wushuang in a low tone. From the research material, Jian Wushuang gathered that Jiuxiu could normally be found in the den of the ancient monster clan. He seldom showed himself, and ventured out even less often. This time, he was making a rare trip away from home, and would return to the ancient monster clan after he was done dealing his affairs. If Jian Wushuang missed this chance, it would be much harder for him to harm Jiuxiu again. I don't know how long I'll have to wait for another chance. Therefore, I have to give it a shot no matter how hard or risky it'll be, said Jian Wushuang, a resolute gaze in his eyes. Evidently, he had already made up his mind. Since you've already decided, I shall not stop you. Before you strike, however, you should plan in detail. You shouldn't act unless you're sure. But once you do, make sure you hit your target. Also, your plan should also allow you to retreat in one piece, suggested Gu King solemnly. I understand, nodded Jian Wushuang. There are 2 Dao masters at peak rank 3 with Jiuxiu, and there's not much chance of success if I act alone. I can, however, get more help. Even though no one in the Samsara continent will offend the ancient monster clan simply, if I offer a huge reward, some people will be willing to help me. Take for instance, Blood Saber. Chapter 1033, The Blood Saber Organization. Chapter 1033, The Blood Saber Organization. There was a rundown shop in an isolated corner of the Emperor Heart City. There was usually no customers at the shop, And if it were not for Commander Su's directions, Jian Wushuang would not have known about its existence. A man dressed in blood-red robes, wearing a blood-colored wicked-looking mask, and carrying a saber strode into the shop. "Are you looking for anything, sir?" asked a skinny elder sitting at the shop counter as he peered over. "I'm looking for blood saber," said the man in the blood-red mask. The old man's lips formed into a slight smile as he heard the visitor's words. "Please follow me." Under the skinny elder's guidance, Jian Wushuang came to a dimly lit secret chamber after a short while. He found a spot to sit, and lifted his head toward the old man. "I heard that your blood saber organization is the strongest faction of killers in the Samsara continent, and that you people will accept any sort of task." The blood saber organization's reputation in the Samsara continent was indeed formidable, and its methods were also extremely effective. It was said that the organization had even attempted to assassinate a celestial master, and even though the mission failed, the celestial master was heavily wounded and paid a heavy price. "You're exaggerating, sir. Even though we may be reputable, it's not true that we'll accept any task. We will definitely not accept requests such as the assassination of the Samsara Temple Master, or killing the celestial masters at the apex of our world, such as Empyrean Patriarch, or the rulers of the 4 top clans," the old man replied with a laugh. "Of course, other than such tasks, our organization will accept any request for the right price. The person I want to move against may not be a monster just below the celestial master level, but he's involved with the ancient monster clan, one of the 4 top clans," said Jian Wushuang nonchalantly. "The ancient monster clan?" said the old man as he frowned slightly at first, but reverted to his usual self shortly after. "Even though they are strong, if we kill 1 or 2 of them, it's no cause for them to turn against us completely. That said, may I know who your target is, sir?" "Dao Master 9 Sword," replied Jian Wushuang directly. The old man's expression immediately changed. "If it were just an ordinary member of the ancient monster clan, will not be afraid, even if the target was an extremely strong Dao Master, or a Dao Master at the peak rank 3. As for Dao Master 9 Sword, the old man thought, I know how important he is to the ancient monster clan. He's practically their treasure. If he dies, it's possible that they could go crazy seeking revenge. "So you can't accept the job?" Jian Wushuang said, having seen through the old man's thoughts. "It's not that we won't accept the job, but it's because Dao Master 9 Sword holds an extremely peculiar position in the ancient monster clan. If we get involved in his business, it'll lead to a whole string of events. Even if we're the Blood Saber organization, we can't afford to take it lightly. Of course, the most important thing is, will you be able to afford the adequate payment for this job, sir?" the skinny elder asked. "What is the reward expected?" questioned Jian Wushuang. 30 chaos gems, replied the skinny elder. It was an amount equivalent to all the assets of a celestial master. The bounty of 20 chaos gems placed on Jian Wushuang's head, after he killed Empyrean Patriarch's son, had already sent shockwaves throughout the entire Samsara continent, and many factions and clans were eyeing the reward. The price requested by the old man was 10 chaos gems more than that. It was indeed a sky-high price. "I don't need your organization to kill Dao Master 9 Sword. I just need you to hold off the 2 Dao Masters by his side, who are at peak rank 3, and not give them a chance to strike. As for Dao Master 9 Sword, I'll find someone else to attack him," said Jian Wushuang. Dao Master 9 Sword is not that powerful himself, but of huge importance. It doesn't matter if the Blood Saber organization assassinates him, or helps someone to act against him. It'll offend the ancient monster clan greatly. They're offenses of the same nature in their eyes. As such, even if it's just to dispatch an expert to aid you, it'll still cost you 28 chaos gems. There's no bargaining about that, replied the skinny elder in a low tone. 28 chaos gems? Asked Jian Wushuang as his emotions stirred. He was in possession of the many treasures left behind by Dao Yuanzi. Dao Yuanzi was an expert from the eternal chaotic world, and had many assets. He had 300 chaos gems in total. Even though it was a huge amount, and the 28 chaos gems requested by the old man was not too many. Jian Wushuang still felt heartache, as he knew the value of these gems. That said, if he wanted to go after Jiao Xiao, he had to pay the price. After all, other than the Blood Saber organization, he could not find anyone else to help him. He did not have many close contacts in the Samsara continent, and even Dao Master Dreamless, with whom he was acquainted with, would not want to go against the ancient monster clan on Jian Wushuang's behalf. Take these 10 chaos gems as the deposit. After the deed is done, I'll pay you the remaining 18 gems, said Jian Wushuang as he drew out 10 chaos gems with a wave of his hand. The skinny elder's eyes brightened up uncontrollably upon seeing the gems. I'll assign some experts to the task immediately, he kept replying after receiving his deposit. You have to act fast. If Dao Master Nine Sword returns back to the ancient monster clan, or if you let the opportunity to strike him slip from our hands, this deal will be off, said Jian Wushuang. Rest assured, I've received the information that Dao Master Nine Sword's coming to the Emperor Heart City, as he has some matters that require the assistance of Elder Ding Mo. He should be staying in the city for a few days, and our organization can dispatch our experts within 2 days. We'll definitely be in time, replied the old man. That's good, replied Jian Wushuang as he nodded slightly. The skinny elder began to make preparations shortly after. As the top organization of killers in the Samsara continent, the Blood Saber organization was indeed efficient. Before 2 days were up, the skinny elder had brought 2 people to Jian Wushuang. Sir, let me introduce you to Army Saber and Rakshasa. They are famous Blood Moon level killers in our organization, said the skinny elder with a laugh. Jian Wushuang measured the 2 killers standing before him. They were a man and a woman respectively. The man wore a cold expression, and there was an ugly sword scar on his face. He hugged his arms together, his gaze totally devoid of expression. The girl, on the other hand, was a lovely-looking teenage girl. She even wore a smile on her face, and gave off the feeling that she was a pitiful young lady. But Jian Wushuang could sense a deadliness residing in the deepest spots of her jet-black pupils. Army Saber and Rakshasa? Asked Jian Wushuang, secretly approving of the 2 killers. After he decided to seek for the Blood Saber organization's assistance, Jian Wushuang had gathered some intelligence on the group. The 2 killers before him were among the most infamous of its killers. Chapter 1034, Making a Move. Chapter 1034, Making a Move. As Blood Moon level killers, both Army Saber and Rakshasa possess peak rank 3 Dao Masters battle strength. They were also considered as one of the most powerful among their peers. It was said that both of them had killed other peak rank 3 Dao Masters. And even though it was a joint operation, it clearly showed their ability. Perhaps it was due to the fact that the Blood Saber organization knew that its sole responsibility would be to tie up the 2 rank 3 Dao Masters, protecting Dao Master Nine Sword, that it sent them to their client. They were known to be experts at tying up their opponents. Both of you should know about your task by now, right? Jian Wushuang asked as he looked at the 2 killers. Yes, replied Army Saber and Rakshasa, both of them slightly nodding. That's good. I hope that when executing the mission, both of you will do as I say entirely, replied Jian Wushuang. Of course, Army Saber said. You're our client. Of course, we would listen to your orders, but only within the limits of our operation. If it falls outside of our mission, we can't help you. All right, said Jian Wushuang as he nodded. After the 3 had reached a consensus, the skinny elder spoke up. I've already sent people out to keep an eye on Dao Master Nine Sword. They'll report to me once he has any movement. Then we shall wait, replied Jian Wushuang. The Emperor Heart City is full of people and experts. We should strike after he leaves the city. Right, agreed the 2 killers, nodding. Jian Wushuang spent the next 3 days waiting patiently in the secret chamber. Dao Master Nine Sword is leaving. News came from the skinny elder. Finally, replied Jian Wushuang as his lips cracked into a smile. It was even chillier than the edge of a sharp knife. The very next moment, he set off along with the 2 killers. Indeed, Dao Master Nine Sword had left the Emperor Heart City and traveled in a straight direction. After half a day's journey, they arrived before an area known to be a place where an advanced population resided. This population was known as the Bone Clan. 500 years ago, the Bone Clan used trickery, which led our ancient monster clan to suffer heavy losses. It was said that they covered up the matter extremely well, but our clan members still managed to uncover their plot. When I traveled out, the third Holy Master had instructed me to exterminate them on my way back, said Dao Master Nine Sword in his customary refined manner. His gaze, though, which was fixed on the quarters of the Bone Clan, was chilly. Let's go. Jiuxiu smiled briefly, before he led the other two rank 3 Dao Masters to dash straight into the inner sanctum of the Bone Clan. Their auras were incredibly great, and they did not bother to conceal them. Many experts of the Bone Clan immediately sensed their presence, once all 3 of them appeared in the void above the quarters of the Bone Clan. Who's there? Halt immediately! Shouts rang out one after another, and only after a short while, dozens of figures rose into the void. All of them were Dao Masters, and their leader was a burly middle-aged man with purple hair. He was the clan leader, but at this moment, he was staring at the 3 people in front of him with a straight face. You are? The burly man began to question them. Nine Sword from the ancient monster clan, replied Dao Master Nine Sword nonchalantly. The ancient monster clan? Replied the purple-haired man. His expression, along with many experts of the Bone Clan, immediately changed, but they quickly composed themselves. So it's the famous Dao Master Nine Sword of the ancient monster clan. May I ask what brings you here today? Asked the clan leader. Nothing much. It's just that I find your Bone Clan a nuisance and wish to destroy it. Dao Master Nine Sword's tone was extremely calm, but it sounded like thunder to the people of this clan. Make your move. Dao Master Nine Sword did not waste his time with unnecessary words. With a wave of his hand, the 2 experts behind him, who had been waiting for their chance to strike, leapt out in an instant. Their terrible auras seeped out and engulfed the entire Bone Clan, immediately causing a disturbance amongst its people. That's not good. Peak rank 3 Dao Masters and 2 of them to boot. The expression of the burly man immediately changed. Quick, stop them, stop both of them, he kept bellowing. Many of Dao Masters from the Bone Clan began making their move. The purple-haired clan leader had also immediately rushed forth to confront his opponents. In an instant, all of the top-tier experts in the Bone Clan were engaged in combat with the 2 peak rank 3 Dao Masters. Even so, it was a one-sided contest. The Bone Clan was just an ordinary advanced population. Even though it was stronger than the Rock Demon and Black Python clan, it was not by much. There were only dozens of Dao Masters in the clan, and their 2 strongest experts were just at the advanced level and entry level of rank 3 respectively. Even though dozens of Dao Masters were now joining forces against the 2 peak rank 3 Dao Masters, they did not have many openings to strike. The Bone Clan was entirely engulfed with chaos once the battle began. As all of this happened, 3 figures were floating in the void not far from where the Bone Clan resided. They stood there gazing from afar, taking in all of the disturbance happening in the Bone Clan. Previously, I was curious as to what Dao Master Nine Sword was doing in the Bone Clan. It turns out that he wants to exterminate this clan. He seems like we're in luck, said the lovely-looking Rakshasa with a slight smile. Given the ability of the 3 from the ancient monster clan, they'll make short work of the Bone Clan. That said, there are a few experts in the Bone Clan, and they're bound to make some last-ditch effort. Even though it will not cost those 3 very much, it'll be enough to drain a considerable amount of spiritual power from them. We'll strike after they've wiped out the Bone Clan. It'll help us greatly, said Army Saber solemnly. It's not necessary to wait until then. We act now, said Jian Wushuang unexpectedly in a low tone. He was standing in the middle of the 2 killers. What? They exclaimed, looking at Jian Wushuang in amazement. Waiting for Dao Master Nine Sword and his men to wipe out the Bone Clan before making their move was definitely the best option. But Jian Wushuang, you're indeed quite merciful, sir. said Rakshasa with a slight smile. Let's move, replied Jian Wushuang, his tone extremely cold. The two killers exchanged one look with each other, and nodded slightly. Jian Wushuang was their client, and naturally, they had to follow his instructions. Our task is to hold the two peak rank 3 Dao Masters up. As for Dao Master 9 Sword, well, you've to handle him by yourself, said Army Saber. In the next instant, the two killers had drifted waif-like away, and they arrived at the battlefield very quickly. The space in the void above the Bone Clan's residential area had already burst open, and the sight was terrible to bear. Dozens of Dao Masters from the Bone Clan were joining forces, and trying their best to stop the two peak-ranked 3 Dao Masters from the ancient monster clan. As for Dao Master 9 Sword, he had not even made a single move. Even so, the Bone Clan was hanging on to their survival by a thin thread. Within a short period, 4 of their Dao Masters had already been slain. At this very moment, 2 waif-like figures dashed straight into the battlefield. Chapter 1035, Long Time No See. Chapter 1035, Long Time No See. The battle was raging on. The figure of one of Dao Master 9 Sword's guards had risen to 3 meters tall, and he gave off a vague bronze glow. He wielded a large axe and brought forth an immense amount of power. He managed to completely suppress 6 Dao Masters of the Bone Clan just by himself. Furthermore, 2 Dao Masters had already fallen to his large axe. "Ha die, all you bastards of the Bone Clan," he exclaimed. He bellowed like a barbarian and swung his large axe wildly. Whoosh! All of a sudden, a scarlet ray of blade light swooped down upon him. It was extremely fast and powerful. Most crucially, it happened very suddenly and nearly without warning. What? It happened so quickly that even the barbarian scrambled to react. Even so, as a peak rank 3 Dao Master, he was not flustered. With a low growl, he cast the 6 Dao Masters of the Bone Clan aside, and struck back with his large axe. It left a bewildering trace as it slashed through the void, directly toward the blade light. Bang! A loud sound rang out as the 2 weapons clashed. The barbarian was knocked back by the impact of the clash, and stumbled a few steps backward. After steadying himself, he looked cautiously at the void in front of him. A cold-looking man with a hideous sword scar on his face appeared there, a blood-red saber in his hand. "That look and the move just now, are you Bloody Army Saber?" growled the barbarian in a low voice. On the other side of the battlefield, the other peak rank 3 Dao Master was also held up by Rakshasa. He had also recognized her very quickly. "Army Saber and Rakshasa?" commented Dao Master 9 Sword. He was standing in the void beside the combatants, his gaze gradually turning cold. It turns out that the intruders are the 2 famous Blood Moon level killers from the Blood Saber organization. It seems that you guys from the Bone Clan were well prepared and hired these 2 top-notch killers in one go. I guess you paid a hefty price, right? Dao Master 9 Sword had not noticed that the remaining experts of the Bone Clan were also wearing a bewildered look on their faces. They were not sure as to how the 2 Blood Moon level killers had appeared suddenly. "We did not hire them, didn't we?" they thought. After all, they did not expect Dao Master 9 Sword to appear today, and that he would have wanted to exterminate their clan. Furthermore, no one could hire the killers of this level as they wished. It would require a hefty payment, and based on the fortune of their clan, it would be hard for them to engage their services. So, who hired Army Saber and Rakshasa? They wondered. No matter who hired them, he or she wants to help us. With their aid, there's still a good chance our clan could survive, said the burly clan leader with a low growl, before striking again at his opponents. The experts of the Bone Clan were also overjoyed, and immediately worked in tandem with the 2 killers. "You guys from the Blood Saber organization are indeed very bold to interfere in the matters of the ancient monster clan," said Dao Master 9 Sword with an icy coldness that soon pervaded the air. "Don't try to scare me, Dao Master 9 Sword. Our organization has been accepting payment to help our clients ease their suffering all this while. As long as the client can afford to pay us, there's nothing that our organization dares not to do," taunted Army Saber. Jian Wushuang was standing in the void not far away from the battle, and took the entire scene in. The corners of his lips curled up, and unexpectedly, he removed his wicked-looking blood-red mask. Even though the mask helped to disguise his true identity to a certain extent, it was also too conspicuous. The two peak rank 3 Dao Masters are already kept busy. Now it's his turn, said Jian Wushuang as he fixed his gaze on Dao Master 9 sword. Jian Wushuang, the person you're about to deal with must have some special item used for defense on him, since he managed to occupy such an important position in the ancient monster clan. Be careful not to let him slip when you strike, reminded Gu King. Don't worry, I have my own plans, said Jian Wushuang with a slight smile, before dashing into the battlefield. Dao Master 9 sword was observing the battle from the side, but his expression was gradually turning gloomy. Both Army Saber and Rakshasa possess peak rank 3 Dao Masters' battle strength, and they were on par with their opponents. Combined with the strength of the Bone Clan experts, the tables had now turned on his subordinates, and they were now completely suppressed. I didn't expect killers from the Blood Saber organization to show up. Things are turning tricky now. As the #1 organization of killers in the entire Samsara continent, its strength is extraordinarily great. Even our ancient monster clan is extremely wary of it, and now that their killers are present, I think it'll be impossible to wipe out the Bone Clan today. Dao Master 9 sword was still wondering to himself when all of a sudden, a figure suddenly appeared in the void beside him and rushed toward him. The aura of an Eternal Realm expert burst forth. It even contained an unparalleled rage. Damned ancient monster clan. I'll fight to the death with you people. A loud roar abruptly reverberated throughout the surrounding space. The attacker seemed to be someone from the Bone Clan, who had gone berserk, and wanted to fight Dao Master 9 sword to the death. Dao Master 9 sword still stood at his original spot, and a look of disdain flashed across his face when he heard the roar coming from his side. He could not even bother to turn to look at his opponent, and absent-mindedly struck a finger toward the void, where his opponent was coming from. A ray of sword essence burst forth with amazing speed. Even though it was a move made casually by Dao Master 9 sword, its power was extremely great. Even a rank 1 Dao Master could very possibly not survive the attack, much less an Eternal Realm expert. The sword essence leapt forward, and at first, everything happened according to Dao Master 9 sword's expectations. It appeared directly in front of his opponent, and there was no way the Eternal Realm expert could escape as it struck him square on the body. The Eternal Realm expert still continued advancing, but at a much reduced speed. The aura from him was also rapidly diminishing. You're nothing but an ant, yet you wish to fight me to the death? Asked Dao Master 9 sword with a contemptuous laugh. But suddenly, the Eternal Realm expert, whose speed had been greatly reduced, suddenly lifted his head and burst forth with a boom. The space behind him burst open, and his figure pierced through the void in an instant. He appeared in front of Dao Master 9 sword simultaneously. Such speed was many times faster than those ordinary Dao Masters. What? Exclaimed Dao Master 9 sword, who could not help but feel extremely alarmed now. He turned his head immediately to look at his opponent. It was only at this very moment that he finally saw his enemy's face. His pupils shrank abruptly upon seeing it. You're... He opened his mouth, trying to say something. Jian Wushuang laughed coldly. It sounded as chilly as the coldest winter. Jiuxiu, it's been a while since we last met each other, he said, every one of his words traveling deep into Dao Master 9 sword's ears, causing all of the hairs on his body to stand up. Chapter 1036, Those Words at That Time. Chapter 1036, Those Words at That Time. Long time no see, Jiuxiu. An extremely beautiful ray of sword light suddenly shone as Jian Wushuang finished speaking. It looked extremely perfect as it sliced easily through the void, and appeared in front of Jiuxiu. Not only did it travel with amazing speed, the instant it shone, there was also a strong consciousness attack rushing toward Jiuxiu. Even so, Jiu Xiu's expression just changed slightly as he met the attack face-on. A gold ray of sword light came rushing forth. Why did my consciousness attack have no effect on him? And how did he manage to block my death shadow when it traveled so quickly? Thought Jian Wushuang, feeling surprised. Clash! The sound of metal striking against metal rang out, as Jian Wushuang's death shadow was blocked. Jiu Xiu's figure had merely been knocked back. He did not suffer any serious wound. Jiu Xiu's strength is much greater than what was described in the research material, thought Jian Wushuang, a serious expression on his face. Is my plan actually failing? He had long known that Jiu Xiu was the precious treasure of the ancient monster clan, and that he would have some moves up his sleeve. As such, Jian Wushuang had come up with a plan when he struck. It was to disguise himself as a clansman of the Bone clan, who had been driven insane, and was looking to fight Jiu Xiu to the death. He would first draw near him, and then sprang into action, using his death shadow to behead Jiu Xiu when he was unprepared before subduing him. As a Dao master, even if Jiu Xiu had lost his head, he would still be alive as long as Jian Wushuang kept the life core in his body from completely disintegrating. Everything had gone according to Jian Wushuang's plan at first. He had purposely exposed the aura of an Eternal Realm expert when charging toward Jiu Xiu, and as Jiu Xiu was unaware of his true identity at first, it gave him the prime opportunity to strike. What he did not expect was that Jiu Xiu's strength was much greater than described. Most importantly, Jiu Xiu had been unaffected by his consciousness attack, resulting in his inability to behead Jiu Xiu at the very first instant. Since my plan has failed, I can only use the most simple and violent method of resolving this conflict, Jian Wushuang thought as a glow burst forth from his eyes, and his killing intent skyrocketed. He then immediately charged forward. Since his sneak attack had failed, he would have to use brute force. Are you Jian Wushuang? Jiu Xiu was first surprised and angry, but he felt more bewildered than anything else later. He steadied himself and fixed his gaze on Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, however, was in no mood for idle talk. He brandished the Blood Mountain sword with one hand, causing it to expand to a length of about 3 meters, before swinging. An extremely ferocious sword light descended upon Jiu Xiu. Not only was it ferocious, but it also seemed as though it could destroy everything in its path. This move was a swordsmanship created by Jian Wushuang himself, based on the Scarlet Yang sword principle. It was different from the death shadow in nature. The move was forceful and mighty, destroying everything in its path. As such, Jian Wushuang named it the Heaven's Bane. Like its name suggested, its force was enough to split heaven and earth into two. This move, muttered Jiu Xiu as he observed the strike. There was a flash of surprise in his eyes before the golden longsword in his hand began expanding quickly as well. Whoosh! He swung his sword too, the frightening sword light tearing a hole about 300 meters long in the surrounding void. Soon, there was spatial turbulence around the opening, and combined with the devastating sword essence, a huge storm began to form all of a sudden, and it started to expand in all directions. Both Jiu Xiu and Jian Wushuang were killed in sword principles. Furthermore, both of them had unleashed their strongest attacks in a head-on clash. Just as the two sword lights hit each other, puffed! Jiu Xiu coughed out a large mouthful of blood, and he began turning pale. Jian Wushuang, on the other hand, had not experienced any impact. It was as if nothing had happened to him. Humph! Your strength may have been greater than described in the material I acquired, but you're at most close to peak rank 3 level. You're still far away from being able to take me on directly, scoffed Jian Wushuang, his tone icy cold. His voice reverberated throughout the space around them. His figure had once again turned into a sharp sword, and it forcefully teared through the rampaging storm, unexpectedly striking at Jiu Xiu again. Evidently, he did not wish to give his opponent any respite. How is this possible? How could Jian Wushuang be so powerful? Jiu Xiu thought. He felt that it was incredible. When they had met in the ancient world, Jian Wushuang was as insignificant as an ant or even worse to him. Then, he could have killed Jian Wushuang over and over again with just one finger, if he did not have any scruples. But what about now? Jiuxiu thought. They had clashed head-on and unexpectedly, Jian Wushuang had completely crushed him. Evidently, his opponent was much stronger. How many years have passed? It was only 2,000 years, right? It just took 2,000 years for him to progress to such a level, thought Jiuxiu as he opened his eyes wide. At the same time, he could not help thinking about what Jian Wushuang told him at the Holy Emperor Palace in the ancient world. Every dog has its day, so don't look down on me just because I'm weak now. It was very simple, and he had brushed it aside as immature and laughable, but now, it had a huge impact on him. It took him, an aborigine of the ancient world, just 2,000 years to catch up with and even surpass me, muttered Jiuxiu. Jiuxiu, I told you in the ancient world that I'll hunt you down and destroy you someday. Today, I'm going to make my promise come true, said Jian Wushuang, his voice loud enough to cause the heavens to shake. The Blood Mountain sword in his hand came swinging again. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. One move came after another at an incredible speed. Jian Wushuang was displaying the entire range of his swordsmanships. You think you can do that? Retorted Jiuxiu, his eyes turning red as well. There was also a hint of craziness in his eyes. He did not have any intention of blocking Jian Wushuang's attack, as he was very clear that he was no match for his opponent in terms of strength. He was, however, not anxious at all. He fished out a token, just as the strike was about to hit him. He then immediately crushed it. Jian Wushuang, you'll die no matter how you manage to improve your strength, growled Jiuxiu. His face had turned extraordinarily sinister, and it even began to distort. A bone-chilling power was unleashed the instant the token was destroyed. That's not good, said Jian Wushuang as his expression changed suddenly. Quick retreat now. Gu Qing's growl rang in Jian Wushuang's mind. Jian Wushuang had retreated the instant he sensed the power being released, but it was guided by Jiuxiu, and had turned into a blood-red giant hand in an instant. It gave immense pressure to every living thing in the vicinity. The skies changed color the moment the giant hand formed, and the void collapsed in an instant. It then began crushing down on Jian Wushuang's position. Chapter 1037 Suppression. Chapter 1037 Suppression. Boom! The giant hand possessed immense destructive power, and it covered the void around Jian Wushuang entirely, even locking down his movements completely in the process. Even though Jian Wushuang possessed great speed, he could not escape from the effective range of the giant hand, and could only watch helplessly as it came crushing down. This is an attack from a celestial master, and not just any ordinary one to boot. You have to be careful, Jian Wushuang, said Gu Qing, sounding extraordinarily solemn. Right, agreed Jian Wushuang, nodding heavily. I've expected Jiuxiu to have some tricks up his sleeve, but I never expected him to possess a token containing a celestial master's attack. Jian Wushuang looked serious as he stared at the giant hand. He could feel its power, and he understood that it was many times more powerful than the strongest blow of Tao Master Dreamless Spear. Even though it was an entry-level technique that was just at the Celestial Master level, it had wounded him seriously. Now this giant hand, he thought. No matter what, I can't wait to be killed. He looked a little unhinged as the ancient god power came gushing forth into his right arm. Second finger of the ancient god star extinguishing. Boom! As he struck his finger out, the image of an ancient god appeared out of nowhere, and it mirrored Jian Wushuang's action. Its giant gold finger, which encompassed the power to shatter stars, struck directly at the giant blood-red hand. This move was currently the strongest technique in Jian Wushuang's arsenal. In terms of power, it was much greater than that of the Heaven's Bane he used earlier. Bump! The giant gold finger made direct contact with the giant hand. The instant they touched, the space around them began rupturing, creating a black hole hundreds of kilometers long in the process. The black hole spread with astounding speed, affecting a number of clansmen from the Bone clan who were nearby. They immediately crumbled into dust particles the instant they were swallowed up by the black hole. There was no way they could struggle away. Two kinds of terrible powers were in a head-on collision. Contrary to belief, such clashes only lasted for an instant, even shorter than the time it took to take a breath. The giant gold finger that was unleashed by Jian Wushuang had been utterly destroyed. There was nothing else stopping the giant hand, and it resumed its path toward Jian Wushuang. I can only rely on the blood-killing plate armor now, Jian Wushuang said, the fire of defiance raging in his eyes. The terrible hand covered Jian Wushuang completely before its power was completely unleashed. All of a sudden, heaven and earth started to split open. The terrible ripples from the clash had swept toward the edge of the battlefield, and even the Tao masters standing around the sides looked fearful and dared not to get in contact. The technique had even more devastating effect at the epicenter of the clash. You should feel proud, Jian Wushuang, that you forced me to use my life-saving item, said Jiuxiu as he stood in the void, his chilling gaze fixed to the front. In his opinion, only a celestial master could withstand such a terrible blast. Even though Jian Wushuang was powerful, he was still in essence just an eternal realm expert. He would surely be unable to survive after being caught in the center of the blast. Suddenly, however, ching! A piercing wind-breaking sound suddenly rang out. What? Asked Jiuxiu incredulously as his expression changed. He immediately turned to see a pale purple lightsaber racing toward him vaguely. There was a figure dressed in black robes standing at the void from where the lightsaber came flying out from, and it was undoubtedly Jian Wushuang. How is this possible? Thought Jiuxiu, his eyes wide open with surprise. How is it that he's perfectly fine after being hit by such a fearsome attack? Also, when did he arrive behind me? Even though Jiuxiu was full of amazement, he still managed to block the lightsaber with his own sword. The lightsaber was knocked backward with a resounding clash, as was Jiuxiu. More importantly, he was headed toward the spot where the might of the giant hand had been unleashed, and the turbulent energy storm created earlier had not subsided entirely. Just at this moment, a ghost-like figure came dashing out from the energy storm. Even though the person cut a sorry figure, he possessed amazing speed, and he struck at Jiuxiu's figure with his longsword. The sword stroke was as perfect as before, and even though consciousness attack had little effect on Jiuxiu, it was still made with great speed. The sword light dashed across the void mercilessly. Jiuxiu could only feel a painful sensation at his throat as his head was detached from his neck and flew off. Is that doppelganger? Jiuxiu asked, his pupils wide open. He had finally realized what was happening, but it was too late. Sword Mountain suppress, Jian Wushuang growled. The Blood Mountain sword in his hand began to transform. What was originally a blood-red sword, which epitomized endless killing, had transformed into a huge mountain in an instant. It descended from above, and came pressing down upon Jiuxiu's torso. At the height of his powers, Jiuxiu would not have been suppressed by Jian Wushuang. But he had been beheaded, and even though he was still alive, he had temporarily lost the ability to act. There was a buzzing sound as a black hole appeared at the bottom of the mountain, and countless mysterious cracks came swarming out of it. They soon engulfed the entire area, and formed into a vast spell formation. The formation had wrapped over Jiuxiu's body. No! Only a growl could be heard from him as he was entirely swallowed up by the black hole. Soon, no sound was coming from him. With a wave of his hand, the mountain transformed back into sword form, and reappeared in Jian Wushuang's hand. As he stroked the sword, Jian Wushuang could sense the trapped Jiuxiu. I succeeded. His eyes were bright with glee, and his slaughter body appeared at his side. He had made detailed preparations before attempting the suppression. Other than making a sneak attack, he had hidden his slaughter body nearby, waiting for the right moment to unleash it. He had succeeded because it attacked at the right moment, and was in sync with the movements of his world body. That giant hand was really powerful. I wonder which holy master of the ancient demon clan did it originate from? Jian Wushuang muttered. Its power was not reduced in the least bit even after being hit by his second finger of the ancient god. And it had even pressed onto Jian Wushuang. Luckily, the blood-killing plate armor he was wearing reduced most of the impact, and he managed to withstand the rest of it as his body was extremely tough, due to the fact that he was a 3-star imperial god. Even though he was seriously wounded, it was not enough to destroy him. Chapter 1038, I've earned. Chapter 1038, I've earned. Of course, even though I was tough and muscular, and I also had the protection of the blood-killing plate armor, it's still insufficient to withstand the attack of a real celestial master. If there were more attacks like that just now, I would have been unable to hold on, Jian Wushuang thought. He shook his head, and then looked toward the battle happening at his side. The other battle was still raging on while Jian Wushuang and Jiu Xiu were locking horns. The two guards of the latter had seen their leader in danger and wanted to come to his rescue, but unfortunately, Army Saber and Rakshasa were keeping them occupied. There was no way they could free themselves up. The shock on their faces was evident when they witnessed Jiu Xiu being suppressed by Jian Wushuang. Release Dao Master 9 Sword quickly, or the ancient monster clan will hunt you to the ends of the earth, and make sure there's nothing left of your body, roared the barbarian wielding the giant axe. Hee to the ends of the earth? Talk to me again when you can really do that, giggled Jian Wushuang before tossing an interspatial ring in Army Saber's direction. This is your balance payment, Army Saber. I hope you can keep them occupied for a while longer, said Jian Wushuang. The killer received the ring and gave it the once-over. Both of us can delay them for another 15 minutes. The experts of the ancient monster clan will arrive shortly after that time, and both of us have to leave before that happens, he replied, nodding. That's enough, said Jian Wushuang, smiling slightly. He then turned and dashed toward the vast space toward their back, not giving any further attention to the other people present. Bastard, don't flee if you dare, shouted the barbarian after Jian Wushuang. Fool, he's already captured Dao Master 9 Sword. Do you mean that he should remain behind like an idiot for the experts from your clan to arrive? Replied Army Saber sarcastically. Accursed, shouted the barbarian, his expression extremely unpleasant. He and the other peak rank 3 Dao Master had very much wanted to shake Army Saber and Rakshasa loose and chase after Jian Wushuang. But they were evenly matched, and furthermore, both killers were especially skilled at holding their opponents up. They could not hope to go anywhere as long as Army Saber and Rakshasa kept coming at them. The two killers stuck to their promise and tangled with their opponents for exactly 15 minutes more. After the allotted time was up, their figures began retreating. Now that 15 minutes is up, Army Saber, and I will not stop both of you from going where you want, Rakshasa said as she laughed demurely. You two bastards. The two Dao Masters looked extremely grim, and even though they were free to move now, they had already lost the motivation to chase after Jian Wushuang. After all, 15 minutes had already gone by. It was a short period of time, but their strength enabled them to fight for many rounds during this period. It was also enough time for Jian Wushuang to have fled thousands of kilometers away, and without proper guidance, it would be pointless to chase after someone at such a far distance away. They would just be lost. The ancient monster clan will remember what happened today, Army Saber and Rakshasa. If anything happens to Dao Master 9 Sword, the entire Blood Saber organization will accompany him in death, growled the barbarian. Humph, do you think that will scare us? Replied Army Saber, entirely disregarding the warning. Even though the ancient monster clan is strong, our organization is no pushover either. If you guys really want to come after us, I can't say what will happen to us, but your clansmen will only be able to remain indoors for the rest of your lives. We'll assassinate anyone that steps outdoors, added Rakshasa in a chilly tone. It made the barbarian even angrier. Fine, we shall see. Let's go, the barbarian said. He then left with the other Dao Master. They were already in no mood to exterminate the Bone clan. Army Saber and Rakshasa were standing side by side in the void above the Bone Clan district. This time, the ancient monster clan must be mad with rage, said Army Saber coldly. Hee, after all, something did happen to Tao Master Nine Sword, their precious darling. It would be weird if they didn't go berserk, giggled Rakshasa. I'm more curious about our client than the reaction of the ancient monster clan. Earlier on, when he told us to hold the 2 guards, I thought that he would assign another expert to handle Tao Master Nine Sword. Who would have thought that he would do it by himself? Furthermore, he succeeded in suppressing Tao Master Nine Sword. When the Tao Master unleashed his trump card, the Celestial Master's attack, he actually survived. Only one person in the entire Samsara continent, nay the entire Green Fire world, could be an Eternal Realm expert, and yet have such ability. Jian Wushuang, exclaimed Army Saber as he squinted slightly. Both killers had guessed their client's identity after watching him suppress Tao Master Nine Sword. The answer was so obvious that not much guessing was really required. Jian Wushuang was the only Eternal Realm expert in the Green Fire world that possessed so much skill and tactics that defied the natural order of things. I didn't expect our client to be the Jian Wushuang who was so famous of late, said Rakshasa as she laughed softly. He's really daring. Previously, he killed the only son of Empyrean Patriarch, leading him to place a bounty of 20 chaos gems on his head. It resulted in everyone wanting a piece of him, but now he wants to go against the even scarier ancient monster clan, and even managed to offend them so greatly. Tsk tisk? Army Saber added, secretly admiring Jian Wushuang. Oh yes, his whereabouts are worth 20 chaos gems. Should we? Started Rakshasa, but she was soon cut off by her partner. I've already reported the entire matter, and whatever those old fellas decide on has nothing to do with us. Our task is completed, and it's best for us to leave, said Army Saber. Right. Rakshasa nodded, and both of them immediately prepared to leave. Only the experts of the Bone Clan remained, and every one of them was puzzled. They had not managed to figure out the entire chain of events up till now. In the same isolated shop in the Emperor Heart City, the skinny elder that had served Jian Wushuang had now received the message transmitted back by Army Saber. Oh, so that kid's Jian Wushuang? Said the skinny elder. He was surprised at first, but soon he began to understand. Actually, I should have thought about it earlier. How could any ordinary Eternal Realm expert hand over 28 chaos gems just like that? To think that Empyrean Patriarch was hell-bent on finding him. Who would have guessed that our Blood Saber organization would be the first to know where he is? He continued, a slight smile forming on his lips. He then took out a token and informed Empyrean Patriarch about Jian Wushuang's whereabouts. This mission, although offended the ancient monster clan, but got 28 chaos gems, plus 20 more from Empyrean Patriarch, nearly 50, haha, earned. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.